Miss Shara Garrett is suing her former friend, Michael Codia, and his girlfriend, Brianna Serrano, for a personal loan, car damages, and an assault.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2056, Garrett versus Codio scenario.
Thank you. Miss Garrett, this gentleman, Michael Codia, is that
correct?
Codia?
Yes.
You and Mr. Codia have been lifelong friends, according
Yes.
to what I read in the complaint. Lifelong, you're both very young. How do you know him?
Well, we used to ride bikes together. His mom used to also braid my hair when I was a child every Sunday.
But you and Mr. Codia were never involved in any relationship other than just friendship.
No.
And Mr. Codia, Miss Serrano is currently your girlfriend.
Correct. Yes, Your Honor.
She had been your girlfriend and been living with you for a while, and you have a child together.
Yes, correct. Well, she's currently pregnant. We're expecting, yeah, they're expecting.
Great. You had a fight.
Yes.
With Miss Serrano, and that was around June of this year.
Yes, Your Honor.
And it was a substantial enough fight that Miss Serrano left the home, and she left the home with your child. And how old is your child?
As I was saying, we are expecting.
So you don't have a child together?
She's 6 months pregnant, currently.
Okay. So you just living, and she left.
Correct.
At about the same time, Miss Garrett, your friend, needed a place to stay.
I wouldn't say needed a place to stay, but
What would you say?
it was more like I kind of had a clue, like she had a place to stay, but it was just one of those situations.
No, look over here. Look over here. Okay.
Sorry.
Now, Mr. Codia, I want you to understand there are very few stories that are new under the sun. I want you to really understand that. I have children. I have grown grandchildren, boys and girls. I've seen all the movies that I want to see about romance and guys. So your girlfriend leaves you.
Yeah.
Yes. And would it be fair to say that you invite Miss Garrett to come and stay with you?
Yes, it would be fair.
Had you ever invited her to come and stay with you before?
No, I have not. Not in the current apartment that I'm staying in right now, no.
Had you in another apartment?
No.
So the answer is you had never invited your friend to come and stay with you before.
No.
Interesting. So on June 27th, she left. On what date did you invite Miss Garrett to come and stay in your apartment?
June 16th.
June 16th?
Yes.
So 11 days before Miss Serrano left?
Miss Serrano left about a week prior to her coming.
What date did you leave, Miss Serrano? Do you recall?
I don't recall. I recall it was the end of or mid-June of this year, I would say. I had personal things going on, so I really wasn't,
Now, Miss Serrano, I'm going to ask you why you left.
We had a falling out. Me and Michael had a falling out.
Yes. What did you and Michael have a falling out about?
Well, at the time, my mother was in the hospital, so that it was a disagreement surrounding having to move back home and take care of her in the household.
And
that was pretty much it.
Well, what did he say? He said he didn't want you to, and you...
Yeah, he pretty much, long story short, didn't want me to move back to my mother's house, so that caused,
Okay, so he wanted you to stay?
Yes. Yes, he wanted me to stay, but,
He wanted you to stay. Now, did you know that the two of you were expecting at that time in June?
Yes.
So he knew that you were expecting a baby, that you wanted to go back to your mother's house because she was ill and you wanted to help take care of her. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And despite the fact that he said, don't go, you left.
Yes, ma'am.
And you went home.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it would be fair to say that he was annoyed.
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting this whole picture now. It's so easy. Okay. And about a week later, he invites this attractive young lady who's been a friend of his for a long time, a non-romantic friend, to move into the apartment.
Yes.
You know that was nasty, right?
Oh, no, yes, I know.
You know that was nasty.
That was an agreement between them.
No. But you know that was a sort of a nasty thing to do.
Oh, no, I'm fully aware. Yes, yes ma'am.
I just want you to know what you're sort of dealing with.
Yes, I'm fully aware of what I'm dealing with. Thank you, though. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so, Mr. Codia, in order to sort of get even a little bit, you invite Miss Garrett to come and move in. No rent or anything, because you didn't have an agreement to pay rent. You weren't going to pay rent or anything, and you moved in. And you moved in on?
I moved in on the 1st.
On the 1st of?
July.
July 1st. Now, Miss Serrano, I'm going to come back to you because this is such a fascinating story.
Oh, Lord.
Such a fascinating story. And he deserves to get dumped on a little bit.
Oh, there's more where that came from, yes. I said that's more where that came from, yes.
Okay. And between the time you left and July 1st, when Miss Garrett was invited to come to stay at the house, were you in communication with Mr. Codia?
Yes. I would say like every day or every other day we spoke, you know, arguments, you know how it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, you're pregnant and you have emotions, and then you're taking care of family members and whatever. And so I got it. Did he tell you that Miss Garrett was moving in?
Yes.
When?
I would say I found out around like the 27th, 28th.
Of June?
Yes.
Tell me how you found out that she was moving in.
I believe at that point she was already moved in at that point.
Okay. And what made you think that?
Just based off of how the conversation went or how he told me.
Tell me what he told you.
What I was told was that a friend was moving in to solely cook and clean.
See what's happening, Tim? This fly is getting vengeance on
Not getting on the food.
What the hell's going on? Oh, you got a swapper too, wow.
I'm waiting for it to come over here.
Yes.
Nashera Garrett claims her former friend, Michael Codia, and his girlfriend, Brianna Serrano, owe for a personal loan and an assault.
Tell me what he told you. I'm curious. I want to know.
What I was told was that a friend was moving in to solely cook and clean. That's what I was told.
Okay, did he tell you who?
Who it was, I never met her.
But he told you who it was?
Yes, he told me who it was.
And that made you, I would probably guess, a little annoyed and unhappy.
I mean, I was annoyed.
I would be annoyed.
I mean, I was annoyed because I had personal things going on, but in between that time before actually realizing that she was living at my apartment, I actually had a brief interaction with her. I met her at a park. I met her. So...
Between the time you moved out?
Yes.
Okay. Was it you met because you contacted each other, or you met by accident?
We met because me and Michael just, you know, had a conversation to have had at that point in time. I'm assuming she was there in the area, so he just wanted to kill two birds with one stone. He said, do you want to meet the person, you know, who's there, who I'm living with, and that's how it went.
And was it a cordial meeting?
Yes, it was.
You met her, she met you?
Yes.
And he said, I just want you to meet the lovely-looking girl that I'm now living with because you went home to take care of your mother.
I guess so, if you wouldn't have put it...
Yes, he...
Don't forget.
This is what your case is about. First, you claim that you loaned Mr. Codia $750 for rent.
Yes.
And you did that because he said once Miss Serrano moved out, she wasn't paying her rent. He was short on rent. That's what I read here. Mr. Codia has a whole different story. He said while he told you that he was a little short on rent and he was going to have to get a third job.
That's not true.
Just a second. You jumped in and offered to give him $750. That's what you wrote here. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, Mr. Codia, did you tell Miss Serrano that somebody was moving into the apartment just to cook and clean? That's what she says.
Yes, that's exactly my words. Exactly my words, yeah.
That's exactly what you told her.
Correct.
You didn't tell Miss Serrano, the soon-to-be mother of your child, that you had a roommate who was paying rent.
I did not.
Miss Serrano, what kind of work were you doing when you were living together in June?
I had a work-from-home position, will still currently do as a Medicaid specialist.
Were you sharing rent with him?
Yes, everything was 50-50.
Did you pay him any rent in July?
No, I did not.
Did you pay him rent in June?
Yes.
So you paid him the $750. That was your share of the rent? Is that what your share was?
That was my share of the rent. June was already paid for. July I did not pay because I did not believe I was going to be there.
Okay. Tell me what he said to you that caused you to give him this $750.
Well, he texted me one morning and said that Brianna was no longer going to pay her half of the rent as of July, and that if he could...
You were living there already?
Yes, and if I give him $750, he would give it back to me. And we never discussed anything about me cooking or cleaning. I actually brought groceries, which he said that he would pay me back for too, while I'm staying there.
Okay.
So it
So
was
you
an
were actually there for
exchange.
5 days, is that right?
About 5 days.
5, 6 days. And at some point around the first week in July, July 5th, 6th, or 7th, you came to the apartment.
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
We had went inside the apartment.
Who's we?
Michael and I, sorry. Michael
So
and I
you were
went-
out, so you weren't staying there. Where had you met him?
We actually met at work. We've been together for a year
No,
and a half.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But you came home to the apartment together, and that was, I think, on the 7th of July.
Yes.
On the 7th of July. Where had you been? You'd been out. You hadn't been staying in the
Oh,
apartment.
no, yeah, I was out actually just going to rosaries and stuff like that. I actually went to go pick him up after a family function from work. After picking him up from work, we went back to the apartment, went upstairs.
Was that the first time you had been back to the
No,
apartment?
I've-
Since you left?
Since I left, I've been there on and off. Like, not on and off, but like every other couple days. But I've been there, not living there, but I've been there spending the night and, you know.
Have you ever, when you were there, have you seen Miss Garrett?
Nope, but I seen her belongings, though.
Okay. But you knew she was there because he told you that she was there.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the 7th, you picked him up, you went back to the apartment, and you'd been there before, but you had never actually physically seen her in the apartment.
Correct.
Despite the fact that you knew she was there.
Correct.
Because you'd been introduced to her.
Correct.
Okay. And what happened?
So we went upstairs. She seen that I was with him, and I guess that must have made her mad.
No, just tell me what happened.
So there was an argument.
Tell me what the argument was.
I don't
Who said
even
what?
I don't even know what the argument was, honestly. She just seen me, and then there was an argument that unfolded about what I still don't know still to this day.
Okay. So now, Miss Garrett, they came home, and
Okay, so them two never came in the apartment together at all that night and previously.
no, just tell me that night.
Oh, that night. So me and Michael discussed that, hey, listen, things are not working out. He has had multiple people in and out his house, and he was making me very uncomfortable, as well as Miss Serrano popping up.
So what do you say? You said multiple people in and out of the house.
Guys, women every night. I would sleep in the park. One night I slept in the park because he had Miss Serrano popping up at 3 o'clock in the morning, her throwing my things around, telling me to get out the house. So I had to go in my car and go sleep in the park. And we had conversations that night when it happened, when she popped up. Hey, can I go
What
sleep?
date was that?
It was, I want to say July the 2nd or the 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah,
Before the 7th.
right.
Okay. And that's when you went out and slept in the park.
Yes.
Just a second. Mr. Cody, you remember that evening?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And that evening on July 2nd or 3rd, Miss Serrano was around. And they don't get along,
They do not.
which is exactly what you anticipated.
Of course.
When you invited her to stay with you.
Sadly.
Absolutely right. Going to have two women fight over the prize, the grand
Right.
prize. Okay. Did you take $750 from her?
No, I
Did
did
you?
not.
Did you? I didn't ask you with a loan.
Yes,
I
she did.
didn't ask you. She has proof that she gave it to you.
Yes, she-
Yeah, okay. So let's not play. Did you take $750 from
Yes, I
her?
did.
So it goes back to her. That's $750. Now we're going to get to what she alleges is the remainder of her lawsuit, which is damages for assault. Okay. On the 7th of July, there was some sort of an altercation. You want to tell me what that was?
Yes.
You did something that annoyed him. You went back to take care of your sick mother, which also attests to his bad character. And then what he does is he invites someone, a woman, to come into the house because he knows that it's going to irritate you. That's exactly what happened. He acknowledges that.
Nashera Garrett has accused her former friend, Michael Codia, and his girlfriend, Brianna Serrano, of damaging her car and assaulting her.
Now, on the 7th of July, there was some sort of an altercation. You want to tell me what that was?
Yes. So that evening, I went into the house and he had his witness, Darius, there. And
This person?
Yes. And me and Michael had conversations about him before, and I just thought it wasn't a good influence. So that evening, I walk in the house, and I'm sorry, let me back that up. I asked Michael if he's gonna have men come in the house, could he please be there while I'm there with them? Because I didn't feel comfortable. He said yes. So when I walked in that evening and saw Darius there, I texted Michael and said, Michael, we need to have another talk, because every talk we have, I'm thinking that we're having understandings, but we're not. So, and Darius set up a whole twin-sized bed up in the living room. So I went out to my car. I said, Michael, when you get home, I'm in my car, so meet me in my car when you get off. It was around 8:30 when Michael had came, and I was sitting in my car. Me and Michael were talking, and...
Was he in your car with you?
No. He was outside of my driver's side. So that's when Miss Brianna came, and she started hitting him upside his head, and I tried to get out of the spot that I was in. And next thing I know, my window's down, and she comes and she's attacking me, punching me in my face. She keyed up my car. When she first came up to my window, she keyed my car. Yeah, I can show you.
What? Okay, did you file a police report?
I didn't.
Why?
I just didn't. I took care of my bruises and my scar. I did call 911, but then I hung up. I just didn't. And
Okay. Do you have photographs of your injury?
Yes. There you go.
So what you're telling me is that this was a scratch
Yes.
across your chest. Mm-hmm. And that's a scratch that was caused by Miss Serrano.
Yes.
And that was in July.
Yes.
Ms. Serrano, I'd like to hear your version of what happened on the 7th of July.
Like I said before, there was just an argument that took place.
That wasn't. I want you to
physical.
start the argument from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay. She's outside in her car. Mm-hmm. Michael is talking to her at the car.
Oh, yeah.
Did you drive over there or did you walk? How did you get
I
there?
parked my car like in front of the house because they were on the side street. So I walked.
She walked there.
Exactly.
You parked
yes,
the
I
car.
walked.
Now let me ask you a couple of questions, Ms. Serrano. Yeah. Did Mr. Codia ever give you an indication that Miss Garrett was no longer going to be living there?
Not that I could recall, no.
Well, I want you to try to recall.
I was told after that whole day went, the day after that, the conversation was going to be for her to leave the house.
Okay. And what were you coming over for? What brought you over there at 8 o'clock at night?
For him.
What do you mean for him?
Well, he left something in my car. He left a charger or something. It was something he left in my car that I was returning back to him.
Did you tell him you were coming over?
Nope. I just popped up.
The answer is no.
No.
You were curious.
Yes, I was. Of course I was.
There you were.
I'm sorry.
See what's happening to him? This fly is getting vengeance on him.
That's getting on me too.
What the hell's going on? Oh, you got a swapper too, wow.
I'm waiting for it to
waiting.
come over here. Did you seek medical treatment?
I did not.
Mr. Cody, I'm going to wrap up this case because I really understand it. I believe I understand it. What I don't understand is why, and this doesn't require an answer, it's sort of a rhetorical question, why you would want to take someone who had been a lifelong friend and someone with whom you are having a child and put either one or both of them in a situation, they don't know each other really, so they don't know whether to like each other or whether not to like each other. I mean, I assume that at this point you would, at least Miss Serrano was planning a long-term relationship with you, and she's having a child, and I assume she thinks you're going to be there to be supportive of the child. Maybe. You have other children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
I have another son.
Okay, how old?
5 years old, 5.
And he lives with his mother?
Yes, he does.
So you see.
Yes. There you go.
This one's a pesky one. I'm usually good at it. I missed it before. I don't know why you would put them in a situation where they would dislike each other all to satisfy your ego.
Wow.
Oh, that's exactly what you did. You put them in a position where two apparently nice ladies, both of whom care about you in different ways, you put them, well, do you care about him?
Yes.
You think she cares about him?
I've never, the entire time I was with
They
him,
just know each other for a long time.
It was way before me, so I guess if you would have put it like that.
And they also went to senior prom together.
Just a second.
Wow, like
I didn't ask you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
I didn't ask you anything. This is not a shout out. What I'm telling you is it goes to his character. He knows her for a long time. They never had a romantic relationship. With you, he's had a romantic relationship. You did something that annoyed him. You went back to take care of your sick mother, which also attests to his bad character. And then what he does is he invites a woman to come into the house, lets you know about it, because he knows that it's going to irritate you. That's exactly what happened. He acknowledges that. That doesn't make him a good guy. So I want you to think about that. But I absolutely believe that you caused a scratch on her, which you can't do. Anyway, Mr. Cody, you owe her $750. And Ms. Serrano, you can't put your hands on anybody, no matter how angry you are at them. And I'm awarding her $1,000 for you putting your hands on her. Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're done. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
I was very satisfied.
I mean, I knew it would cause havoc, but
Different women every night.
I try to keep it in secret.
And that's why we stopped being friends before, but I definitely learned my lesson.
I feel like it's unfortunate. I feel like she manipulated the whole situation.
The friendship is over.
He's gonna be a father to my child, man.
After working with you now for almost a year, I'm starting to get so jaded from these cases that I'm starting to think that just staying single might be my best option if these are the alternatives. Yeah. Just blows my mind. He admitted to just pitting an old friend and your fiance, who's pregnant with your child, against each other.
To satisfy your ego.
Yes. Sounds like a terrible idea, was a terrible idea, turned out to be a terrible idea, and it'll land you in court on occasion.
You're right, but rethink that staying single.
Mary Marshall are suing their neighbors, Joseph and Jennifer Fugate, for an insurance deductible and filing a false police report.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case number 2074, Marshall versus Fugate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. and Mrs. Marshall, you live across the street from Mr. Fugate and his mother.
Yes.
How long have you lived in your house?
22 years.
And Mr. Fugate, how long have you lived in your house?
Your Honor, my mom has lived in the house far longer than I have. She's lived in it since 2008. I moved in 2016.
Mr. and Mrs. Marshall, this problem that I'm going to try to rectify today deals with parking space.
Yes.
And the parking space is a public parking space, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And it's on the street, and the public parking space happens to be in front of your home.
Yes, ma'am.
You live across the street.
Yes, ma'am.
And the case involves acrimony that has developed because you, Mr. Fugate, would like to keep that spot that's in front of your home free for your mother, who you say for health reasons it would be more convenient for her to park right in front of the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. and Mrs. Marshall sometimes or always park in that spot. That's what the problem is.
Yes.
Okay. And I assume you're going to speak for your husband for now?
I can, yes.
Do you want her to talk for you?
It's fine.
He learns his lessons well. Oh, that's very good. Perfect.
I can speak for myself.
Perfect.
If she need to, she can.
Perfect. You've been living there a long time. Did you have any trouble with the Fugate family about this parking space between 2008 and 2016?
No.
So before the son moved in, you had no problem?
That's right.
Had you ever, just a second, had you ever had discussions with Mrs. Fugate about parking in that spot before he came?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, Mrs. Fugate, did you understand what I said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want you to be very careful in your answer to me.
Yes, ma'am.
You've lived there for a long time.
Yes,
your son didn't move in until 2016. Before your son moved in, did you ever have any communication with Mr. and Mrs. Marshall about parking in front of your house?
Ma'am, she didn't park in front of my house before my son moved in.
Okay, so is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you tell me what changed after her son moved in?
Okay, where I park at is actually across the street from the Fugates. It's right by my driveway, and I park my Toyota Avalon right beside my driveway, which is the parking spot that Mr. Fugate is causing the problems over.
So it's the parking spot is in front of your house?
No, it's not in front of my house. It's beside my driveway.
But on your side of the house?
That's
on your
correct.
side of the street?
Yes. Correct.
No.
Do they have a parking space in front of their house on their side of the street?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever park there?
I have. When they took the parking space I usually park in, I did park across the street.
Okay, so occasionally, either Mr. Fugate, his mother, parks on your side of the street, on a public street, and you'll park in front of their house.
Correct.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so let me tell you all this. We're going to finish part of the case right now. Too bad. You can park wherever you want on a public street because there are other visitors that come, I assume, for people who live on the block, that they take up parking spaces, and occasionally there aren't other parking spaces. You know, there's no question you would prefer to park on your side of the street, and you would prefer to park on your side of the street. If you can't, you can't. Mr. Fugate, I'm just telling you, just so that you know, you have no right to a public parking space.
Yes, I understand that, Your Honor. I'm not the one that needs to be told that, though.
You have no right to a public parking space.
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you live, in what state?
Ohio, Cincinnati.
Okay. I've actually been to Cincinnati frequently, but I am certain that there is no regulation in Ohio or any city or town thereof that says, well, you sort of had first dibs on the parking space on the public street that's in front of your house. That's ridiculous.
The best that Cincinnati has, Your Honor, is a 3-day law that if the vehicle doesn't move within 3 days, then it could be towed by the city. But that's the best that they have.
You live across the street from each other. Did either of you ever call the police and say a car has been there for more than 3 days?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who did?
I did, Your Honor.
Why?
Because the spot in question that's directly across the street is actually, it's hindering to the entire flow of the neighborhood and where everybody parks on the street. I served 10 years Army, and I fought for people.
Listen, I don't care if you're a good person, if you're not a good person, if you're a do-gooder, if you're not a do-gooder. It's a public street. And if what you're suggesting to me is they should be nice, it's an older person, and they shouldn't park in that spot, what I'm telling you is I wouldn't start up with anybody by calling the police on a car that especially a car that I knew. I know that it's my neighbor's car. They've been living there for 22 years, relatively peacefully. Relatively peaceful.
It hasn't really been peaceful, Your Honor.
You moved there.
Yes, I did.
They were living there a decade before you moved there. You.
Yes, ma'am.
If it wasn't peaceful, there are options. You're a free person. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I cannot imagine my calling the police on a neighbor's car that was parked in the street. Well, that created problems. Okay, so I see where we're going. We're going to get to this case. Reimbursement for insurance deductible, that's one thing, because you claim that Mr. Fugate damaged your car.
Yes, ma'am.
On what date?
That was on June the 26th.
Of this year?
Of 21, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you have any video evidence of the damage to your car?
No, ma'am. All I have is a picture.
Tell me how he damaged the car. With what did he damage the car?
Okay. He damaged the car with his hand. I'm parking the car.
You mean in front of?
In front of Mrs. Fugate's home.
So on her side of the street?
Yes, ma'am. I exit the car. Mr. Fugate is being erratic.
No, don't tell me what your perception of. Tell me what he did.
He was beating the hood of the car.
He came up to the car and was hitting the top of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I'll see the car and the police report. See the dent, and that's the hood of the car. Okay. Okay, as this police report says, Mr. Fugate told the police in his narrative that this incident occurred, there was a disagreement over the parking space, and that you struck him with the car, causing minor injury. Okay, because you have a cross complaint for that.
That is correct.
Okay. So that's a simple. June 26th, I see the car was damaged. There's no question it was damaged by somebody pounding on the hood, and I assume that was you.
Ma'am, that's wrong. I did not pound on the hood.
Well, then tell me, Mr. Fugate, how these dents occurred, just the way they look, on the hood of the car.
Your Honor, I have the 911 audio calls of the night, as well as the police report, and I also drew up a diagram where she was originally parked that explains everything. But,
okay, so I'd like to see that. Okay.
Ma'am, if I could approach the diagram.
Absolutely. June 26th.
On June 26th, I was talking to my parents when the marshals came home. My car was parked right here. Okay, they came home, they blocked their own driveway, and parked right up on top of my bumper.
Just a second. Just a second. So you, Mr. Fugate, were parked on a public street where you could park on their side of the street, not your side of the street, okay?
Yes, Your
Honor. And they came up blocking their own driveway.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Did you see them? Were you in the house watching?
No, I was on my parents' porch.
Okay, so now you're on your parents' porch, they're in their car, and they blocked their own driveway.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Not a big ordeal, right?
Not any of your business.
Right, it wasn't, like I said, wasn't a problem to me,
wasn't any of your business.
Exactly. So
Go
anyway,
ahead.
I'm talking to my parents on the phone. They're just getting done working. I can hear that the marshals are upset about where I'm parked at on a public street. And I went out to save my parents' spot because I could hear her say, I'm going to teach him a lesson.
So, Mr. Fugate, now, is what you're telling me that car where you're standing, you went out to make it so that they could not park on a public street? Is that what you're telling me? The answer is yes.
Yes.
You got off the porch to stand in the street to block them from moving in front of your house because your car was parked on their side of the street.
No, no, Your Honor. No, you got that wrong.
Is that red car yours?
The red car is mine.
It's mine.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just to say, the red car is yours. Listen, I'm not a moron.
I know that.
The white car is the space that you wanted to save for your parents.
Yes, Your Honor. They were on their way home. I was
Who
talking to
gives
them.
a rat's behind where they were? Now you have
this
both
whole
spots.
area was clear, and there is a crossing road that comes all the way through here, and they could have parked.
Who made you the monitor of public parking?
No one.
Who do you think you are to be the monitor of public parking?
Sherry and Jeffrey Marshall claim their neighbors, Joseph and Jennifer Fugate, owe for an insurance deductible and filing a false police report. Joseph and Jennifer are countersuing for medical bills from an assault.
Now, you went out on a public street to go like this to save a parking space for your parents.
Yes,
that you had no right to do. Let me just understand this. You had no right to go out there. You parked on their side of the street, and then you went outside to save the spot because your parents were on their way home.
Yeah,
Just a second. You have no right to do that. Zero. Don't you understand that?
No, actually, I don't understand that, Your Honor. How do I not have a right to save a spot?
You do not have a right to save a public
parents.
Just a second. You don't have that right. Because I'm here to tell you, you don't have a right to save a spot on a public street by standing in the street like this. Don't park here.
And I'm
you have
like this.
I don't care whether you were hopping on one foot and chewing gum. You don't have the right to save a spot, and it makes it twice as obnoxious because you parked on their side of the street. Now, if there was a spot in front of their house that they could park in, and they said, no, I'm going to park in front of the defendant's house, I could say, you know what? That's nasty.
Well, that's
just that nasty. Now you have both spots.
This whole area was clear, okay? And there is a crossing road that comes all the way through here, and they could have parked.
Who made you the monitor of public parking?
No one.
Who do you think you are to be the monitor of public parking? Get back.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now, Mr. Monitor of Public Parking, you come out and you're standing in the street to save the spot. She comes around to park there, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me what happened.
Well, she came around to park there, and then she hit me with her car.
Just a second. She came around to park there, and you were standing in the street.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, pay careful attention. Where did she hit you in the car before you moved?
She hit me in the knee.
In the knee. And so you jumped out of the way. No.
I fell on her car. I guess I was talking on the phone, and when she hit me in the knee, I fell on her car.
Baloney! That's not what this is. What was the damage to your car?
The damage.
That's baloney. That didn't happen because your elbow went on her car. Sir, if she hit you on the knee, she hit you on the knee with the front of her car, which is possible. By the way, you have medical records to show me?
I do.
I'd like to see them. The record should reflect that they closed this case, made no arrests in this case, and probably told everybody to behave themselves, which is what I'm doing.
I apologize.
Okay. What is this?
That is the ambulance bill for...
I want to see a medical record. I don't care if you went in an ambulance. I want to see what the doctor reported about your injury. Where is that?
I was unable to get that.
Well, that's too bad. Then I'm not interested in this. That's nonsense. Okay, how much did it cost to fix your car?
Here we are. Thank you.
And you had a $500 deductible?
Yes, ma'am.
$500 so far for the plaintiff. The counterclaim that talks about medical bills for this is dismissed. Okay, filing a false police report.
Yes, ma'am.
And the false police report you're talking about is what?
Mrs. Fugate initiated a confrontation with me.
When?
December the 22nd. I'm on my way to my vehicle. Mrs. Fugate is parked maybe like 10 feet behind me.
Put up the diagram again, please. Okay, just go over to the board. This is a different date, but I just want you to show me where she was and where you were.
Okay. Mrs. Fugate was parked right about here.
She parked right about there, which is opposite your house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'm parked here.
In front of her house?
Correct.
Okay, so you're both on the same side of the street, which is the defendant's side of the street. You're parked across the street from your house.
That's correct.
Got it. Go ahead.
Okay.
What happened?
And Mrs. Fugate, she comes out of her car. She's walking towards me. She's upset. She's yelling. And I don't remember all of the words that she was saying, but it was about parking. She was telling me I couldn't park where I was parked at. She's yelling. She's screaming. I'm trying to reason with her.
Could you step back there?
Yes. I'm trying to reason with Miss Fugate. I'm telling her it's a public street and I can park there. She's yelling and screaming and telling me that I can't. We're standing in front of one another. She's still yelling and screaming. I'm trying to reason with her. Next thing I know, she hits me on the hand. My reflex, I pushed her back. Next thing I know, she's still standing after I pushed. Next thing I know, I guess she thought about it, and then she made herself fall on the ground.
Well, I don't know whether she did or not. Somebody said with regard to this that there's a video of this. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It was dismissed in court. It wasn't showed in court.
I don't care whether it's shown in court or not. I would like to see, because I read here that there is a security video of what happened on. If it's a video, you don't have to go up there, Ms. Fugate, because I can actually see it myself. So now, those are the two cars parked on the same side of the street, and they are parked on the defendant's side of the street.
Yes, ma'am.
And your car is the...
Black car.
Your car is the black car. Their car is the red car.
That's correct.
And that's Ms. Fugate getting out of her car. Okay,
Yes,
now I'd like to see the video.
She started to move up. So I thought I'd move my car a little closer.
Shh! Don't speak.
That's when she...
Shh! Okay, I'm going to see that again, please. And I'd like you to do it slowly at some point when they're right in each other's faces and getting very nasty. Oh, no, Miss Marshall, you can't do that.
It wasn't my intention.
Oh, just a second. It was absolutely your intention.
No,
it was absolutely your intention, and there was, listen, you know, I'm an equal opportunity abuser. You can't do that. You can't do what I just saw. What I just saw is unreasonable behavior and totally inconsistent to being maybe, which I didn't see, slapped on the hand.
Right.
Maybe slapped on the hand. I didn't see it. But I did see you give her a substantial shove, and she is a person who has a certain infirmity, and she fell. And if she fell, and if she was injured, you're responsible. That's it. I saw you give her a shove that didn't, as you say, she decided to fall back down. No, madam. You hit her with such force that she fell backward. You say no, I say yes. Yeah. I'm a judge. I win.
Sherry and Jeffrey Marshall have accused their neighbors, Joseph and Jennifer Fugate, of damaging their car. Jennifer claims she was assaulted by Sherry over a parking spot.
Now, I saw the video. I don't have to have your mother testify. You should have not created an incident, Mrs. Fugate.
I did.
Yes, no, yes, just a second. Yes, you did.
I was walking toward the car, and I was to go to my car and pull up because she was starting to pull her car up. And if you look, she started to pull her car up first. And then when she come around the car, she's holding her cell phone yelling, I got you on recording. I'm recording you because I'm going to show you a hate crime. Excuse me.
Just a second. Part of the problem is you and your son have to understand that you have no right to the parking spaces that are on a public street, just a sec, in front of your house. And your son clearly is a provocateur in this because he parks his car on their side of the street. I'm not getting, so what I'm doing is I am dissecting this case. If I have two unreasonable people, they're going to continue to make each other's lives miserable, and I can't control that. All I can do is hear each individual side. So, Mrs. Fugate, I have already said that Miss Marshall had no right, based upon what I saw, to push you with such force that you fell. I would like to see the medical report after the incident of December 22nd. May I see it, Kevin?
I was in the ER.
Okay.
And I had to wear a brace for a month on my arm and shoulder.
Did you have any out-of-pocket expense?
I paid $900 because it was Christmas holidays.
All I want to know is, did you have any out-of-pocket expense?
Yes, Your Honor.
And yes, I had...
Shh. What is this?
I had to have a woman come in and clean my house.
Oh, I don't care about that.
That was out of...
I don't care about that. Return that to her. That's a cleaning bill for somebody to come in and clean. Let her clean. Okay, so filing a false police report and false arrest. Who was arrested?
I was.
And you were arrested, in my judgment, legitimately, because of based upon what I saw. So I'm dismissing...
That is not why they arrested me.
Oh, okay. So that is not the reason that you were arrested, was not this.
The reason why I was arrested is because when she hit me and when I pushed her back, when they asked me what happened, I did not tell them that she had struck me.
Miss Marshall, is the reason you were arrested based upon the occurrence of December 22nd? That's easy.
Yes, it was.
Well, that's what I said. So don't say no. The reason you were arrested and claim falsely is as a result of the December 22nd incident.
But I was cleared.
I don't care whether you were cleared or not. I didn't clear you. The burden of proof in a criminal case is proof by beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? That is not the burden of proof in a civil proceeding. It's a much lower standard. I looked at that video. I believe that your conduct was unconscionable.
And not hers. You didn't see.
I think that her behavior was I think that her behavior was stupid. I don't just a second. I don't see her hitting you. I see you walking away, Miss Marshall. I see you walking away, but I saw you give her a shove that, as you say, she decided to fall back down. No, madam. You hit her with such force that she fell backward. You say no, I say yes. I'm a judge, I win. So you, on your case, I said, absolutely, I don't believe him. I don't believe that the damage to your car resulted from his putting his elbow on it. I told him, you have absolutely no right to save a space for your parents. I'm awarding...
The case is malicious. From what you saw him do, that's what she did. She installed a camera, set me up, manured me in front of the camera. She knew what she was doing when she hit me on the hand.
Okay, very...
she knew.
Just a second. Just a second.
All of it is
Just a second. It's not your judgment that I'm concerned about, madam. I'm telling you, based upon what I saw, I'm awarding Mrs. Fugate, who I think she and her son both have to understand what a public street is. I'm awarding her $2,000 on her counterclaim for her injuries as a result of the assault. I'm dismissing part of your claim for false arrest. I awarded you the $500 that you asked for your deductible. You got your $500. It's coming off the $2,000 that I've awarded Mrs. Fugate for her injuries, judgment on the counterclaim for $1,500. Thank you very much. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
I wouldn't have never maliciously pushed anybody.
I've been trying to tell this story forever.
I didn't know what else she was going to do. I was trying to protect myself.
It really does harden me that there are people out there that could go and just do this.
I have always been friendly. I never bother anyone. They keep bothering us.
We're really hoping that this does resolve the issue.
I just want them to leave us alone.
Bring them to Judy Justice.
Because she really does care.
You want to know how I know that the plaintiff wasn't being truthful when she said that I wasn't being malicious, it was an accident, I did not push her that hard? If that had happened to me and I was just trying to get someone away from me, and that reaction from the defendant of falling back, I thought she almost cracked her head on the curb. I would have said, I'm so sorry, oh my goodness, I would have gone down to her, I didn't mean to push you, let me help you up. The plaintiff just walked right back to her car, and you could see her face almost had a smirk on it, just walked right back to her car like she didn't even care. And that, to me, says you knew exactly what you were doing when you put your hands on that woman.
Yeah, and I didn't see a slap.
It could have happened. I said
it could have happened. It could have happened. I just didn't see it.
That reaction was
an
above and beyond.
overreaction.
Daniel Gray is suing his former friend, Tony Woods, for car damages after a night of drinking and driving.
Court come to order.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2018, Gray versus Woods.
Thanks, Kevin. You're welcome. Everybody sober today? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yeah.
You?
Yes, I'm sober.
Yes?
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
Everybody. Okay, good. You two gentlemen know each other. You went out for an evening. I assume there was some drinking, and your car got totaled.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that the defendant was driving your car when it got totaled.
Yes.
The defendant says he was drinking a little bit, but he says that you don't remember because you were so blotto that you were driving. Right?
Yes.
So that's what the case is about. Simple. Two drunks, nobody knows who was driving the car when it got totaled. Let's see if we can decipher it. If we can't, I may not care. Because you're not supposed to be in a car when you're drunk. Otherwise, you can kill a lot of people, as we all know. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Want to drive drunk and kill yourself, that's one thing. Right? You take a lot of other people down, and sometimes you make it out. So you have to be understanding to the fact that the judicial system really doesn't give a rat's behind if the two of you were drunk and in a car, and neither one of you was together enough to know who was driving the car. Yeah. When did this incident happen?
It was November 27th, 2021.
How long have you known Mr. Woods, Mr. Gray?
I've known Mr. Woods about 20 years, I would say.
So you've known him since you were kids?
Yeah, since high school.
And you have gone out frequently?
Yes.
Does he come to your house?
Yes.
You go to his house?
Occasionally, yes.
Occasionally. And where were you going on the 27th of November?
We were going downtown Ann Arbor to attend some festivities from the Michigan versus Ohio State football game.
To a football event?
Yeah.
How did Mr. Woods get downtown?
Well, Your Honor, I got dropped off.
By whom?
My friend.
Friend's name?
Lauren.
And where did she drop you off?
She dropped me off in front of the Starbucks downtown where they were waiting, because they were drunk. I didn't drink.
Just a second. Lauren dropped you off at Starbucks. Where were you supposed to go from Starbucks?
We supposed to go to a club and hang out after the game.
So you first went to the game?
No, they went downtown right after the game, and I came to meet up to hang out.
So it was all after the game?
Yes.
What time did Lauren drop Mr. Woods off at Starbucks?
I would say it was around like 3, 4 o'clock.
In the afternoon?
I believe so.
What time did Lauren drop you off?
It had to be about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
And when you say it had to be 5:30 or 6 o'clock, how do you know that?
Because the game was over.
I don't know. I don't watch football, so I don't know when it starts and when it's finished. Do you remember what time the game finished?
No, I don't remember exactly.
Okay, so let's say Lauren dropped you off at 5:30. How did you set the time for Mr. Woods to meet you so that he could join your party? The game is over different times. Did you text him? Did he call you?
So on the way, we had left from my barbershop, me and my witness here, Mo Chop.
So you weren't at the game, you were in a barbershop?
Yeah, we were at the barbershop at first. We watched the game.
Oh, you watched, so you didn't go to the game?
We didn't attend the actual game, no.
Okay.
We watched the game at the
How many people, you, Mohammed, and who else watched the game at the barbershop?
I mean, the barbershop was full of, we were still working at the time. We had left work after the game was over to go downtown to...
Were you watching the game or were you working?
I was doing both.
I would have hated to be your last haircut.
No, actually, it wasn't a lot of people there because that was the biggest game of Michigan's season, the last game, Ohio State. It's a big rivalry, so nobody was in our barbershop.
So
really.
It was just party? It was...
It was just party.
You know, I'm old, so, you know... It was just party. You said, Mohammed.
It was a party.
It was just party. Okay. So you left the barbershop, but how did you find out to meet them at the Starbucks?
We had been communicating through text.
So you knew what time they were leaving the barbershop, and then you got dropped off. Now, what were you doing with Lauren?
I was waiting to get to them.
Where were you before?
I was at home. I watched the game at home.
With Lauren?
No, with myself.
Well, how'd you get Lauren to take you to Starbucks?
Oh, I just asked her and gave her some gas money.
Okay, so now you're at Starbucks, you meet up, and who's driving?
I was driving.
Okay, and that would have been a mistake.
Excuse me?
That would have been a mistake. I wouldn't get behind the wheel of a car, sir, if I was at a party all afternoon watching a big football game.
Ma'am, I wasn't at a party. I was at my barbershop.
I know you were at your barbershop.
Yeah.
Look at Mohammed. I know you were at your barbershop, sir.
There hadn't been any drinking going on at that time.
There was no drinking in the barbershop, Mohammed? Oh.
There was people participating. Some people weren't. Some people were. I wasn't. I wasn't participating.
All righty. Okay. So now you go from this party in the barbershop all afternoon from this very big game, and you pick him up, and where were you going?
At that point, we decided to go to a bar.
Where was the bar?
I'm not familiar with downtown Ann Arbor area, but like it was a bar that was suggested by...
Stand up next to him. He's not familiar with a whole lot of things. You suggested a particular bar, Mohammed?
Yeah,
How far is that from the Starbucks where he was dropped off?
About a couple blocks over.
Okay, and you were in the car?
I was in the car.
Were you sitting in the front or the back when you picked up Mr. Woods?
I was sitting in the passenger seat at this point.
So Mr. Woods got in the back?
Yes, he did.
And you were going a couple of blocks to the bar?
Yeah.
Step by step, what happened next?
So traffic is jam-packed down there, so we're really just inching to the bar. We get to the bar, we go inside, we have a couple drinks.
Okay, so now it maybe 6 o'clock, 6:30?
Yeah. Dark outside.
And you have a couple of drinks at the bar?
A couple drinks, yeah.
What were you drinking?
I was drinking water.
That's not a drink that they like to serve at a bar.
I was a designated driver, so after we left the bar.
Okay, so you were the designated driver, and Mr. Gray was drinking?
Yes.
What was he drinking?
I don't remember what his drink is.
You remember what you were drinking?
Yes, ma'am.
What?
I had one beer.
Okay. Even he can't keep a straight face. You know, it's hard. Don't speak. Now, you were the designated driver. When were you designated the designated driver?
Well,
think very careful. Before you answer my questions, you know. Okay. I'm already 2 steps ahead of this game. When were you... Yeah.
I've watched on TV, yes, I know.
When were you designated the designated driver?
When we left the bar, I was the designated driver.
No. So it was when you left the bar?
Yes.
And who designated you the designated driver?
Well, I kind of designated myself. I'm pretty familiar with the Ann Arbor area. It's actually my idea to go downtown, so.
So you asked Mr. Gray if you could drive?
Yeah, I thought it would be the best idea.
And Mr. Gray said okay?
Yes, he did.
So you drove, and where were you going from the bar?
To another bar.
Better pickings at the other bar?
Just bar hopping, you know, college, downtown, football.
Okay, and what's the name of that bar?
Where did we go from there?
You're not up! Speak, as I look at you. The name of the other bar. Okay, now he helped you with that, right?
Yeah, he jogged my memory a little bit.
He jogged your memory.
Yeah.
So if he knew the bar, why did you have to be the designated driver?
I don't think I understand your question.
It's very easy. You said you were the designated driver because you know that area.
Right. I'm saying I didn't remember what bar we went to. I'm very familiar with the area. I just didn't remember what bar we were going to that night.
Okay. What happened when you got to the second bar?
We had some more drinks and...
we had some more drinks?
Yes.
What was Mr. Gray drinking?
You know, I was talking to some other friends that I met up with there. He was off doing his own thing. I don't remember what he was drinking.
What were you drinking?
Water still at this point. Water. Yeah. I like to stay hydrated.
When I come out of the restroom, my car is gone. So I call him, and he's not answering the phone. So I'm sitting at the shop waiting. He called me and say, "Yo, man, you gonna kill me, man. I just crashed your car. I'm sorry, bro."
Daniel Gray claims his former friend, Tony Woods, drove drunk and crashed his car. Tony says Daniel was the one driving drunk and wrecked his own car.
Okay, so now you had a couple of drinks, you had another glass of water.
Yes.
Mr. Gray and Mr. Woods both were drinking alcohol, and what happened next?
We left there, we went to get something to eat.
Where did you go to eat?
We went to, what's the name of that place?
I don't know the name of the place, and he's not going to tell you.
It's a hot dog place. It's right around the corner from where we was drinking.
And then what happened there?
We got something to eat.
Okay, do you remember what time that was?
You know, I really don't.
Well, you've been already to two bars and a place to eat. So, and if you started out at 6 o'clock, it had to be closer to 9 or 10 o'clock.
Right, yeah.
Okay, then what happened?
Came out of the restaurant.
And you remember what you had at the restaurant?
I had some waffle fries.
And do you remember what Mr. Gray ate?
He had a hot dog.
And do you remember what Mr. Woods ate?
He also had a hot dog.
Good. So you came out of the restaurant. Do you remember who paid the bill?
I think we all paid separately.
Okay, so now you come out of the restaurant.
Yeah, we come out the restaurant, we had eaten already. And this when Mr. Woods over here started horseplaying a little bit, charged at me from across the street. You know, I tried to get him
But just a second.
Okay.
How did he get across the street?
Well, the restaurant was across the street. We parked across the street from the restaurant.
Okay, I got it.
So I had already got back to the car.
Okay.
And Mr. Woods over here started horseplaying, and he ran across the street and tried tackling me, and he got me around my waist. I tried to put him in a headlock, but you see the size of his head. And that just continued throughout the night, this horseplaying.
No. So he's horseplaying with you.
Right.
But you get into the car. You said if you continued all during the night. What I want to know is, from the place where they got hot dogs and you got waffle fries, did you get back into the car?
We did get back into the car. We went one more place.
Okay. Now, when you got back into the car, after the 2 dogs and the fries, who was driving?
At that point, I think I was still driving.
Not think. I don't want to think.
I believe I was driving. I dropped myself off to my next destination because I separated from them two.
You went to one other place?
Yeah.
With them?
With the 3 of them, yes.
And when you got to the other place, you went in or you did not go in?
I went inside, yeah.
Okay. Did you stay there?
I did stay there.
And what about the 2 of them?
They went wherever they went. Back to the barbershop, I believe.
And you were the designated driver.
Up into the
So you were drinking the water.
Yes.
And they were both drinking alcohol. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. What do you mean, yeah? You go to at least 2 bars, maybe 3. You have a whole afternoon of drinking at a barbershop. Not you, you were drinking water.
Water, yeah. I don't know what was in that cup.
Then you get dropped off. You was the designated driver. Now, they're nowhere near home. So you knew one of them was going to be driving.
Right.
And as far as your testimony is concerned, you were left in the last place that you visited, they went out to go someplace else or go back to the barbershop.
Right.
Did you see them again that evening? Is not an answer. I mean, we're coming to court today. You know, it's not a photo shoot. You came here for testimony.
I don't believe I seen them that night again.
No, I'm just talking about that night. That's what we're talking about, that night. This is the night of the accident, the 27th of November, 2021.
I didn't see them again.
You're in a club. You don't know what happened. Now, when they dropped you off, did you go outside with them or did you just stay in the club?
I stayed inside.
So you don't know anything else?
What happened after that?
Now you can sit.
Thank you.
Okay, now, your witness, the designated water drinking driver, has dropped himself off, and the two of you go outside. What happened?
After he gets dropped off, we are parked at a bar, and...
Just a second. He stays there. You get into the car because you're going to another bar.
No, not at this point.
Where were you going?
I was getting ready to go to my barbershop.
He's not with you. Who was driving?
I was driving at that.
Okay. And you were driving to take yourself back, according to you, to the barbershop.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Okay, so we get to the barbershop, and I leave the car running. He's in the car with me.
Just a sec. Got to the barbershop, and you left the car running for what reason?
Because it was cold outside. It was snow. It was... it's November.
Well, what were you going to the barbershop for?
I went to the barbershop because I needed to use the restroom.
And the barbershop is close by to this last bar you were at?
Yes.
How close?
Maybe like 2 miles.
Okay, so you went to the barbershop. You left the car running and?
So I go in to use the restroom, and I leave the car running, and Mr. Woods was sitting in the car still. So as I'm in the restroom, he comes in and starts knocking on the door and says that he had lost his phone when he had got out the car where we were parked at.
Where?
The last bar that we were at. I didn't actually go into the last bar. We was parked there. We were about to go in to meet up with him.
What do you mean to meet up with him? He was with you.
As he said, he met up with another friend.
He didn't tell me that. He said you just dropped him off at the other bar and you weren't going in, just he was going in, you dropped him off. That's what he said.
No, he went in.
I understand he went in.
All right, I never went in the last bar.
Okay, you didn't go and neither did he.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you, he said I lost my phone someplace.
No, where we were parked at, he got out the car for a second. I never got out the car. He got out the car for a second. And
what was he doing when he got out of the car for a second?
He thought we were about to go in, but I told him that I needed to use the restroom. So he got back in the car. But at some point when he got out the car, he dropped his phone. So I told him I needed to use the restroom. So I go to my shop to use the restroom. I park the car.
Got it.
I get out. I leave the car running. I go in, use the restroom. He comes in, knocks on the door, telling me that, hey, yo, I lost my phone. Can I drive the car? Let me go pick it up real quick. And I tell him no. Like, just wait, I'll be out in a second. So he leaves. I hear the door open and close. I'm thinking that he's just going to sit back in the car. So when I come out of the restroom, my car is gone. I call him, and he's not answering the phone. So I keep calling. And then the next, 10 minutes later, he answers the phone. So I knew he went to go get his phone.
He found his phone?
Yes, and I'm furious at this point because he just left me in my
At the barbershop?
Yeah, in my car. So I tell him, bring my car back right now. He said, I'm on my way. I'll be there in a minute. About 15 minutes later, he called me and say, yo, man, you gonna kill me, man. I just crashed your car. I'm sorry, bro. Mm-hmm. And I had to walk all the way to the accident scene, to the car where he crashed my car at.
Now, you have an accident report?
No, I don't have an accident report.
Why?
Because we never called the police.
That's
because
probably a good idea.
He wasn't involved with another car. He just hit a pole.
I understand that. That's still an accident report. The only reason you don't call the police is because both of you were drinking.
Well, I wasn't driving the car at that time.
When you were driving the car to the barbershop, right?
Yes.
From the last bar where you dropped Mohammed off, you were driving.
Yes, I was not drunk, though, Your Honor.
If you're not drinking, it's sort of an interesting thing. Everybody's definition of drunk is different. Your friend Mohammed said that he was the designated driver, so he was just drinking water. That's what he said.
That's what Mohammed
Which suggests to me that we had a full day of drinking, starting at the barbershop, watching the game, from the game to 2 or 3 bars, then for a bite to eat.
No. I wasn't drinking at the barbershop. I didn't start drinking until we got to the first bar.
Okay, so now you started to drink at 6 o'clock. Now it's 10 o'clock, and you've been drinking from one place to another. I'm just saying you got behind the wheel of a car, and you had been drinking. Now, did you hit a pole?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, now you tell me your version of the events. How long was he in the restroom before you realized that you had dropped your phone?
About 5 minutes.
So now he's gone in to use the restroom. You go and look for your phone. You see how easy this is, like fishing in a fish tank.
Daniel Gray has accused his former friend, Tony Woods, of driving drunk and wrecking his car.
Okay, now you tell me your version of the events.
Okay, first off, I ain't eat no hot dog. So I never.
You didn't what?
I never had a hot dog. Never ate
Okay,
hot dog.
strike the hot dog.
No hot dog.
Whitney, it's true. He denies the hot
I
dog.
didn't eat a hot dog either.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Denies the hot dog.
Okay, so for what happened after they got in the car, first, they were very drunk.
Just a second. You don't have to tell me. All three of you were drunk.
I wasn't drunk yet.
Okay. By the time the car got trashed, you were drunk. Let me tell you what I believe.
Okay.
So that you can pick it up from there.
Okay.
I believe that Mohammed was dropped off at the last bar. So there came a time at the end of the evening when it was just the two of you. I don't know who's driving, I don't know who's the passenger, but I believe that they dropped him off because otherwise Mohammed, who appears here as a witness today, would have had a better story because he says, I don't know what happened afterwards, because I wasn't there. So there was a time at the end of the evening that just the two of you were in the car.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Okay, can I tell you before that part, though? Because he was driving down the wrong way of the street.
But there's no question in my mind he shouldn't have been behind the wheel of a car.
And that's when I lost my phone and my wallet, and we were wrestling in the street. He actually attacked me.
Let's move forward.
Okay.
There came a time when just the two of you were in the car.
Okay.
When was that?
Well, we were sitting in front of a bar that we were about to go to. I got out the car, and I dropped my phone. At that time, I asked him to take me back to get
No. You dropped your phone. And you didn't know you dropped your phone because if you knew you dropped your phone, you would have picked it up.
Right, correct.
Right. So then you got back into the car. Driver's seat or passenger seat?
I was in the passenger seat.
And Mr. Gray was driving?
Yes.
And Mr. Mohammed was at the bar?
Yes, he was with a friend.
He had gone to the bar, so it was the two of you. You're in the passenger seat, he's driving, and he's drunk.
Yes.
And you went back to the barbershop for him to use the restroom. Just follow, because there was a time when you wanted to go back to look for your dropped phone. Do you understand?
Correct.
Now, he goes back to the barbershop. How long was he in the restroom before you realized that you had dropped your phone?
About 5 minutes.
And you realized that you had dropped your phone because you tried to make a call while you were waiting for him.
Correct. And it was snow on the ground, correct.
It was snowing, and he didn't have a Frankfurter.
Yes.
So now he's gone in to use the restroom. You go and look for your phone. You see how easy this is, like fishing in a fish tank. You went inside, and what did you do when you went inside when you realized that you had lost your phone?
I told him, let's go get my phone, and he drove us and went and got the phone.
Okay, so he came out of the restroom. You got back into the passenger seat of the car.
Correct.
And he got into the driver's seat of the car.
Correct.
And what happened?
Then we called Mohammed to try to meet back up with him after we got my phone. And then...
No. Step slowly he turned. Step by step, inch by inch. Now you're in the car, on your way back to the bar where Mohammed is to look for your phone.
I got drunk. I think I blacked out after that point.
Not according to your answer. According to your answer, you knew exactly what happened, sir. What do you mean you blacked out? You signed a sworn statement.
I know we got the phone. I got the phone back.
Well, I know you got the phone, so you had to have driven back there successfully to get the phone.
Yes.
And is it at that point that you get back into the car and you blacked out?
No, it was just I got really drunk after getting my phone. Like, after that, I just...
You don't remember what happened?
I remember getting my phone and being drunk. Like, I got my phone.
Okie dokie, there we go. Okay, you were all drunk. As a matter of fact, I have zero sympathy for any of you getting behind the wheel of a car. Okay, the car was damaged.
Yes, I have.
And so what you want me to believe, that you blame him, and I could understand that because I don't know how drunk you actually were, whether or not you blame him for your wrecked car because you were driving the car back to find his phone and it wouldn't have been in that problem had he not dropped his phone out of the car, or whether he was actually driving the car drunk. It's actually irrelevant to me. You were both driving drunk. You have a bill to fix the car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it.
And I have pictures of the accident.
Okay, so, yeah. So the bill was $5,500. And you had insurance?
Yes.
And the insurance paid for how much?
I had no fault insurance.
So you didn't have...
I didn't have collision.
Okay. You didn't have collision, so you had to pay $5,500, which you paid.
Yeah.
Divide that by 2.
$2,750.
That's what I thought. So, Mr. Gray, there are some lessons that you learned, and I don't know whether other courts would agree. I have to make a determination as to credibility, and quite frankly, I can't determine between two drunks who's telling me the truth. Because on the 27th of November, both of you were in no condition to drive a car. And I can't tell who actually drove the car at the time that it was wrecked. But I do know that you drove the car from a club to your barbershop, and that neither one of you stayed at the scene, called the police, because both of you were inebriated and knew that either one or both of you were going to get busted for a DUI because you both drove the car that evening. What?
Ma'am, I was not drunk at the time that this happened. I did go to the bars, but I wasn't in the bars drinking. That I had one beer.
$2,750, we're done.
This court is adjourned.
I feel like he kind of got the story wrong because I wasn't drunk, but...
I think that was very fair. I feel like, you know, the judge was very reasonable.
I had one beer that day, but, I mean, there's a limit to, like, being drunk in the state of Michigan.
It was just one of those drunk things, you know, but we got it taken care of.
I wanted to make him look like my vehicle.
It was very snowy outside, and, you know, something happened, and I don't remember.
I didn't do anything. I just called the tow truck and tried to get the situation solved.
And I'm very happy to get this case behind me.
Satisfied I got something out of the deal.
I don't know. Hopefully we could get back to being friends. You know, he's a good guy.
I'm surprised you gave them anything. You know, unclean hands don't deserve money from this court, as we've seen time and again. So I'm surprised, really, that you gave him even half of what he was asking, because you couldn't tell which one of them was credible, if either of them were credible. And so what are you supposed to do? I mean, I guess splitting it down the middle was, I understand why you made your judgment, but I would have taught him a lesson, given him nothing.
Interesting.
Drunk driving is nothing to play around with.
Yeah, okay.
Very serious.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad in the DNA it's getting tougher rather than softer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. You may be right. You may be right. I just felt that they were both at fault. And either you leave the parties where they are, or you say both of you have to hurt a little.
Yep. I understand.
But I actually understand your position. Respect.
Honor Tara Gordon is suing her former clients, Beatrice Jackson and Nicholas Smith, for the balance of a wedding contract.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case number 2030, Gordon versus Jackson Smith.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Gordon, you're a wedding planner.
Yes.
You called her to plan a wedding that you were having in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Is your husband?
Yes.
The wedding was scheduled for what date?
April 30th of 22.
Your lawsuit against the defendants is for the balance of a fee that you say is due and owing to you. Ms. Jackson and Mr. Smith are counterclaiming for a whole bunch of things. They said that not only didn't they get everything that they paid for, that you selected the venue, and they were ejected from the venue because they weren't allowed to have a wedding there or serve liquor. So what was your fee that you quoted the defendants, and how much of that fee did they pay?
My fee for planning the wedding was $4,000.
And that $4,000, was that fee reduced to a contract?
Yes, it was.
I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Ms. Jackson, this your first wedding?
Yes.
And yours?
Yes.
Okay, your total fee was $4,000 and a deposit of $2,000. Did they give you a deposit?
Yes.
Okay, so they signed an agreement to pay you $4,000. How much did they pay you in total?
In total, for our planning fee, they paid...
No, in total, how much did they pay your company?
$2,000.
$2,000.
Correct. So how our company is set up is we're set up as an affordable payment plan for a wedding. So we set up our clients on a payment plan. So they also pay the expenses of all of their wedding through us.
So you have to send them an invoice for what it was that you spent for the vendors.
Correct.
Okay.
And then also the default of that contract states that if they miss payments, they have breached the contract.
That's why we're here. Each of you is accusing the other of breaching this agreement. You say that they didn't finish paying you what they owed you, and they say you didn't furnish the services to them that they signed up for the wedding. They gave you $2,000, and the wedding was supposed to be held where?
The banquet hall.
Did you send them a deposit?
No, because at that time she had not paid enough money.
Just a second. The answer is no. You had not sent them a deposit.
No.
Had they sent you the deposit of $2,000?
They sent me the deposit for our planning fee, yes.
I'm talking about for your planning fee, $2,000.
Yes.
And how much was the deposit for?
50% of $16,000, which was $8,000.
And where is the invoice for that you sent them?
I don't have that invoice because she was not able to secure the venue.
I read it. And from what I read in your complaint, the original venue that you secured, according to you, was rendered unavailable because of a broken pipe.
That was the second venue. We went through 3 venues. The first venue, she lost that venue because she could not keep up with the payments and did not submit money for a deposit. The second venue was the R&R Event Center. That venue she lost because a pipe broke in the venue.
Okay, just a second. R&R
Event Center.
And when was that taken?
That was booked on March 11th, 2022. And I do have the invoice for that.
And how much was it?
$2,250.
Okay, that's much better than $8,000. Okay. Did she put in a deposit?
Deposit was made from the monthly payments that she makes towards her wedding.
Show me invoices that you sent her every month.
Yes, I have that.
Well, I'd like to see them.
This is the statement of the account. It lists all the invoices that she was sent on a monthly basis.
So she paid you the $20,000 that was invoiced.
Her wedding cost a total of $23,600.
No, that's not what I said. Opening balance was $0. Invoice $20,451.57. Paid $19,356.57. That's what this says. Uncross your arms.
Correct. No, that's
so
correct.
she paid for everything. Now.
No, she didn't pay for everything because, as I just stated, her wedding cost a total of $23,651.
Let's go back to, because I see that we're not getting anywhere. Before her wedding, before anything happened, before she said, I do, and before he says, I take you, she paid practically $20,000, which was your original estimate and her budget for the wedding. Just a second. That's either a yes or a no. Before the wedding, your original budget that you were given by the defendant, I read the papers, was $20,000.
So, and
that's either a yes, I read the papers, or a no.
Yes, that is the budget she stated she would like to stay around. But however, in planning a wedding, you cannot give an exact of how it's going to cost.
I didn't say that. Madam, pay careful attention to me. I've made 16 weddings. I've had 16 event planners. I know exactly how it works, and I know exactly that you can't always predict to the $100 or $50 or sometimes $500 how much more the wedding is going to cost. It never costs less. That's not what I said to you. I said by the time the wedding took place, she had paid the vast majority of the original amount that she said she wanted to spend for the wedding. And that is accurate. She said she wanted to spend $20,000. She gave you over $19,000. Did that include your fee?
No, it didn't.
Just a second. So the answer is no. That's what she wanted to spend, exclusive of your fee.
Correct.
Now, of your fee, she gave you an initial deposit, or they did, of $2,000.
So
that's either a yes or a no. She gave you $2,000. Did she ever pay you the other $2,000 for the fee? And the rest of the expenses that you want are the additional expenses over and above the $20,000 that, stop shaking your head, over and above what she originally said she wanted to spend.
Correct.
Now, I'm going to get to what happened just about a week before the wedding.
Okay.
You had booked a place. She had paid for the place, $2,250.
Yes.
And that was at R&R. According to you, something happened at R&R. Stop shaking your head. It's annoying. Something happened at R&R. What happened at R&R and when?
Correct. The wedding was scheduled to happen on April 30th.
Tell me what happened at R&R.
I was informed by Rico, the owner, sitting on that side, that a pipe had busted and the venue would no longer be available for usage on her wedding date.
And on what date was that?
It was around the week before her wedding, or 2 weeks before her wedding, sorry.
Date?
I don't have the exact date.
You own, manage, or what, this R&R?
I'm the owner of R&R Event Center.
Okay, tell me your last name, sir.
Cox, C-O-X.
Do you remember having a conversation with the plaintiff about the venue?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember when it was?
March 25th of 2022.
Can you tell me what you said to her and what she said to you?
We had a conversation. I'm like, hey, problem with my venue. I had a pipe that busted. I won't be able to host their wedding. Well, the reception, I should say. So I informed her I can put her in contact with other venues that I may know, or I could send her back the deposit. She asked for the deposit back. I sent the deposit back probably within the hour.
How much was the deposit? $2,250?
No, ma'am.
How much was it?
$1,125, which was half.
So 50%?
Yes, ma'am.
So you sent her back the deposit?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you receive the deposit, Ms. Gordon?
Yes, I did.
The wedding wasn't until April 30th. So you had plenty of time. Well, not plenty of time. You had time to look for a new venue, or else they were going to have to change the date.
Correct, and they found
it. What venue, you can sit down, Mr. Cox, thank you very much. What venue did you select? And had you ever used them before?
No, I had not. I never worked with a challenge budget like this for a venue.
If you don't like the budget, don't take the gig.
Yeah, I won't.
And that's where the reception was held. But that venue was not allowed to have this kind of party.
I was not aware of that until the day of the wedding.
That's your problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their problem. They hired you as an event planner.
They did, and they got a
wedding.
The wedding went the entire time. The wedding was not closed until after the wedding had already ended. So they used the venue regardless.
Okay. Miss Gordon, it's your job as the event planner, which is what I don't understand you being here. It's your job as the event planner. They don't live in Las Vegas. That's your job to ensure that the place that you select is a venue that's capable of performing the duties that you outlined in your contract, which means they serve food, they're allowed to serve liquor, they're allowed to dance, they're allowed to host an event of how many people?
It was supposed to be 120, but all of my guests didn't get their invitation. So.
Okay, so over 100 people.
Your Honor, it wasn't that they were not allowed to have the wedding there. They were allowed to have the wedding there. What they were not allowed to do was the business was not allowed to operate after a certain time, and that is what the business owner produced to us.
Just a second. You want to show me a contract that she signed with that business owner? Ms. Gordon?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I would like to see the contract that you signed with this business owner. Sarah, just for my own information, would you look up this venue, please? Tell me what you find.
Sure.
Ms. Gordon, this space was a little less money than the previous space that you had selected.
Correct.
$500, $700?
Yes, and that's because they were not providing all of the things that the original event place was providing.
Was this event space that you booked at the end of the evening, I don't want to use the word raided, closed by the police? That's either a yes. Did the police arrive at this venue?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And what time did the police arrive at the venue?
They arrived at 9:30.
Is there a police report that anyone has?
No.
And how many parties have you done where police arrived at the end of an evening or during the course of an evening in the 2 years that you've been in Las Vegas?
Never.
And the police arrived at this wedding not because anybody was creating a disturbance, there weren't shots fired.
Well, no, that is why.
You may say so, I don't know anything about the venue, but that's your job. You're supposed to know about the venue.
When I told her in the first place that she needed to postpone her wedding, that was my professional
You mean that's
advice.
No, that's not what she hired you for, to tell you to postpone her wedding.
Wedding planner Tara Gordon claims her former clients, Beatrice Jackson and Nicholas Smith, owe for the balance of their wedding. Beatrice and Nicholas are countersuing for breach of contract.
Okay, police arrived at this wedding not because anybody was creating a disturbance. There weren't shots fired.
Well, no, that is why. They initially had a report because...
Well, I don't know that. If you can show it to me,
I don't have.
I'd be more than happy to look at it. The police showed up.
May I bring my witness up, please?
For what reason?
Because she can attest to the altercation that took place prior, which is why we were even brought up on the radar, because the other businesses in the vicinity of where the business takes place had complained. There was a lot of altercation back and forth outside of the event because she refused to sign the agreed upon payment plan to continue payments after the wedding.
You understand that I'm not particularly sympathetic.
I'm not.
I'm letting you know I'm not particularly sympathetic for the following reason.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody plans a wedding and has a budget of $20,000 plus your fee. So that's, say, $25,000 that they either put together or are saving up for a wedding, first for each. A week before the wedding, something happens with the venue, where the wedding could not be held at the venue of their choice. They're relying on an out-of-state wedding planner, that's you, to find a legitimate venue that is licensed to have an event. When they get to Las Vegas on the date of the wedding, you present them with a new contract.
No, that is not true. That
well,
is
when
where
did you
have it incorrect.
Just a second. When did you give them? Because you said that the problem, which caused the police to come. Just a second. I don't understand.
Before I selected the very last venue, she was on FaceTime with me, looking at the venue with me, because I informed her I've never worked with this venue. I don't know anything about the venue. I told her that the best thing for her is to postpone her wedding. She was already behind in payments. This is her third venue.
Just a second. She paid you almost the entire $20,000.
She paid it in March. In March.
Doesn't matter. She paid you almost the entire...
30 days before her wedding. That's what you're not hearing.
I'm not looking at you. Before her wedding, she paid you almost the entire amount of the $20,000 that she originally gave you as a budget before the wedding.
If you look at the contract, it says that you're going to make monthly payments so that we can adequately plan your wedding. You booked me back in 2021, almost a year before your wedding. The wedding was to be planned over the course of that year. The initial venue that I have worked with, that I know is reputable, she ended up not paying the deposit on time, so they had to move forward with another date. After that, I didn't get any payments from her until March, when she got her tax return. And then at that time, I was forced with less than 60 days to try to find another venue, in which I did, which was R&R event space. And then a pipe busted in that event space. And then I was forced to find another venue for her. I told her back in January, the top of the year, you need to postpone your wedding. Before invitations went out, before of all of that, when she was having troubles with her payment plan, I advised her as a professional, I think you should postpone your wedding date.
You may talk a lot, but the bottom line is you're the expert. Uncross your arms. You're the expert. You're trying to talk over me? You're trying to talk over me?
No, I'm not.
Good. So you're the expert. She's out of town. The reason that she selects a wedding planner in Las Vegas is because you're supposed to know whether or not the venue that you recommend is able to take care of the party you book. You may say to her, uncross. You may say to her, I don't know anything about the venue, but that's your job. You're supposed to know about the venue.
When I told her in the first place that she needed to postpone her wedding, that was my professional advice.
No, that's not what she hired you for, to tell you to postpone her wedding. She hired you to plan her wedding, not to give her advice whether or not... You're trying to talk over me. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You have to understand there are certain things that you did. Okay. You got out the invitations. That's a great thing. I assume you got a DJ. That's great. All of those things. The wedding itself, to me, was problematic. If my wedding ended with the police coming to the venue, and it turned out that the venue was one where you weren't allowed to have that kind of an event, I would be annoyed at the wedding.
They were allowed to have a wedding.
No, they weren't. The police officer.
The contract clearly states that.
I don't care what it states.
That's not what the police officer said.
And you know, because you have a police.
I don't
report,
care what
you
it
spoke to them? No,
I don't
you
care what it
reported
states. You started to tell me before that the reason the police came there is because there was an altercation about you giving her another contract on that date, and there were words outside, and people were complaining, other people who were in the air.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
The night before her wedding, I explained to her.
I want to know what's happened on the date of the wedding. Just a second.
Can you let me finish so I can articulate?
I want you to go because I have a limited amount of time and I'm getting very old. I thought what you said to me, and you're going to read this back, is that the reason the police were drawn to the venue is because of the arguments outside.
Correct.
Let's read that
That's
back.
what I just said.
That was on the date of the wedding.
Correct.
You got married, and you're happy, and you had people at the wedding.
She got a free wedding.
And you
$20,000.
You're almost done. Do you understand? You're almost finished. Go ahead.
We were brought up on the radar because the other businesses in the vicinity where the event took place had complained. There was a lot of altercation back and forth outside of the event because she didn't agree to sign the payment plan.
Okay. So the reason that you said, let's go back, that the police came to the venue and then shut it down because it wasn't allowed to be used for what it was used for was because there were altercations about this second contract.
No, that's not the contract we were having an altercation about. That's what I'm trying to
Oh, just a
explain to
second.
you.
On the day of the wedding, Miss Gordon, did you present her with a new contract to sign? That's either a yes or a no.
I did, but not for the venue. That's
It's not for the venue. I didn't say it was for the venue.
Yes.
On the day of her wedding, did you present her with a new contract? The answer is yes.
Yes.
You said you had discussed that with her the night before?
Correct.
And uncross.
Oh, sorry.
And the night before, did she agree to sign?
Yes, she
Just a
did.
second. A new contract?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And the new contract provided for what?
The new contract that she was supposed to sign
provided for what?
Provided for the remainder balance of the $23,681 that her wedding actually cost. Because she had only paid $19,000. You have the sheet, so I don't have the exact number.
$19,356.57.
Correct. So since she had only paid that amount and the total expenses for her wedding were $23,681. So the night before she agreed to make a payment plan with me to extend her payments beyond her wedding date to pay off this remaining balance.
And is that what she agreed to on the phone? Is that what you're saying to me?
Correct.
She agreed with
She
you
agreed
on... She agreed on the phone to pay you the additional $3,500 or $4,000, and she agreed to pay it over time.
Correct.
And that was Friday night.
Correct.
And then she got to the wedding.
Correct.
And at what point did you present her with the new contract? At what point in the event?
Upon her arrival to the reception venue.
Now, what happened when you got to the reception venue? You'd already gotten through the ceremony, so you're already married. What time did you get to reception?
So the reception was supposed to start at 5. It was supposed to start at 5, but when we got there, she wasn't even done decorating. All of my family stayed outside for another hour, including my grandmother, my grandpa. We waited in cars. Okay.
She said it was supposed to start at 5.
At 5.
This venue that I have here someplace, you have it?
I think it was supposed to start at 5:30 and end at 10:30 per the contract.
Okay. Thank you. Was it supposed to start at 5:30?
Yes.
What happened at 5:30, Miss Gordon?
I presented her with the contract, and then she refused to sign it. Her guests were waiting outside because she was refusing to sign it. When she refused to sign it, because our agreement was she was going to sign the agreement before we started the reception. When she said that she did not want to start the reception, I responded and I said, we will pack all of this up and my staff and I will leave because now we're not being paid for our services.
What time did the police arrive? I'm telling you, I would be furious if I spent $20,000 for a wedding and my evening ended by the police having my guests leave. Furious.
Wedding planner Tara Gordon has accused her former clients, Beatrice Jackson and Nicholas Smith, of refusing to pay the remaining wedding balance. Beatrice and Nicholas claim Tara booked an illegal venue for their reception.
So, what time did the police arrive?
The police arrived at 9:30.
And did the police tell everyone to leave?
Yes, they did.
And told everyone that they had to leave?
They arrived and they told me that everyone had to leave.
Whether they told you or whether they told them.
Yes.
They said the place had to be clear.
Correct.
And that was an hour before the termination of the event.
So at the end of the event was...
The event was supposed to end at 10:30. Police arrived at 9:30. That's according to you. That's an hour short of the event time she was supposed to have at the venue.
No, the event was supposed to end at 9:30. This is her timeline of events that was supposed to take place.
This is the contract.
That's the time that I have the venue too. I have to clean up. The agreed upon timeline is here. The wedding was supposed to end at 9:30, giving me an hour to clean up.
I'll take a look at what you have. I'm just telling you that this is the signed contract.
That's signed between me and the venue because they were giving me an extra hour to clean up.
That doesn't say that in here.
Because I booked it for a timeline. I booked it from 5:30 to 10:30. I outlined everything that takes place. It ended at the last song of the night was at 9:30. And she went through the last song. We made it through the last song of the night on time.
Could I take a look at that?
I just can't wait till it's my turn.
Well, the last song of the night was supposed to start at 9:30.
Yes, and it started earlier because we made it through and she was done dancing. And by the time the police came, it was just mingling and dancing going on. So she had made it through her entire wedding reception is what I'm trying to state.
Yes, Mr. Cox.
Please.
Hey, Your Honor, I'm back. That's not true. The police actually came at 9 o'clock and...
Were you there?
I was the DJ.
You were the DJ?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
That didn't get paid.
Don't.
Oh, he got
Don't.
paid. He got paid.
Speak. So the police arrived at 9 o'clock.
That's correct.
And what happened when they arrived, Mr. Cox?
So
by the way, did you know them before the wedding?
No, ma'am.
Did you know her before the wedding?
Just conversation that we had via Facebook or telephone.
No, he did not know me
So no.
prior to the
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him. She booked your services.
Yes, ma'am.
And how much were your services for the night?
My DJing services were $500.
Were you paid?
No, ma'am.
What happened when the police arrived?
The police came, asked everyone to leave.
Do you know anything about this venue space where the wedding took place?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about it.
It's a storefront.
So are a lot of venues in Las Vegas.
Your case is dismissed. Do you understand? This is not a free-for-all. As far as I'm concerned, you got almost exactly what her budget called for. And I have one vendor that wasn't paid.
Because she didn't pay. It's clear.
Well, how do I know that you paid the other vendors? At least I know one vendor that you didn't pay, and she paid almost $20,000.
They got paid because, okay.
I have two things. I have one vendor that's here that wasn't paid. You were paid almost $20,000. The balance, part of it, is for your fee. Part of it is
my
for...
fee was not...
Are you saying that part of this money that you're suing for, this $4,000, was not part of your fee?
The $4,000 that I'm suing for is part of my fee.
Of course, that's what I said. So part of that money was for your fee, and part of it was for vendors. I have one vendor here who says he wasn't paid.
Well, I have receipts from other vendors if you like to see.
No, I know you had a lot of vendors, but you didn't pay him. He's the only
I didn't pay him
body.
because she didn't pay me. It's clear. She didn't pay me enough money to pay her venue. I have here proof of how much every item in her wedding cost, which exceeded the $19,000 that she paid. Clearly, she owes more money. That's the facts of the matter. She owes more money to what her wedding cost.
She's countersuing you for ruining her wedding because you booked it at a venue that wasn't allowed to have a wedding. She's got a counterclaim for far more than your claim. Bottom line is, she picked a wedding planner, she picked a venue, she tacitly approved this change of venue. Both of you had to at the last minute, but you did that relying on the wedding planner to find a venue that was capable to hold the event, and it wasn't. It wasn't. That's your job. Your job is to find an appropriate place so that the police don't raid a wedding a half hour before it's over. That's not the way a wedding is supposed to end. So what I want you to tell me is you're suing her for $4,300. How much of that $4,300 is your fee?
$2,000.
And you didn't pay him?
No.
So that's 24 minus $500. You didn't pay him because you have to pay him.
I pay him.
Part
Well,
of
he's
it
already
was to
paid.
pay him.
I'm deducting it.
Okay.
I'm not paying you for your fee.
Okay.
You booked the wrong space for your fee. So far, I have $18.25. Other than the DJ, who else didn't you pay? I'm very clear.
Can I?
Other than the DJ, he's going to tell me, the DJ is going to tell me, other than the DJ, who else didn't you pay? Mr. Cox, could you stand up, please? You seem to want to tell me something, and since you didn't know either one of these parties, I'm going to let you tell me. Do you know any other vendor other than you who wasn't paid?
The bartender also was not paid.
Bartender.
That's correct.
Which is his wife.
That's correct.
I don't care if it was his wife or not, it was the bartender.
Right, but what I'm saying was the bar was included.
How much were you supposed to pay the bartender?
The bar and the bartender came with him. He offered to do the bar and to DJ because his pipe busted. So what I'm saying is, he said, I'll bring my bar and I'll do a cash bar, meaning
That's because a bar you can't have for $500. So
Right,
we'll
but
do
he
a
was
cash
doing a
bar.
cash- correct.
Did you do a cash bar?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. So you made some money off the cash bar?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, of course. Got it. Now you can sit. So what you paid him was $500 for both.
And $150 for the bar.
$650 total.
That's what he charged them outside of the wedding.
This is a very easy case for me. You were paid almost $20,000.
I wasn't paid anything. I was
Yes.
paid $2,000.
And I would feel doubly furious if on the day of my wedding, as a new bride of an hour, the event planner said to me, you can't go in unless you sign this contract, modifying our first contract.
The contract was not to modify.
Your case is
the
dismissed.
contract.
We're done.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
So you counterclaim.
There are some things that I realized that, I could have done better.
Basically, 10 days before the wedding, add additional $4,000 on top of $20,000.
That never happened.
It was just her way of just trying to come up on more money, in my opinion.
At the end of the day, she had got her wedding.
I'm actually sometimes surprised at professionals like this woman, who is an event planner, has a reputation. She was almost fully compensated for this event. And the wedding was, if it were my wedding, I would say, it's ruined by having a police shut it down. We had a wedding a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think if the police?
You would not be happy if you paid any amount of money to a professional and had that happen. I really thought it was outrageous.
The whole thing was just tacky, waiting outside the venue when she got there from the ceremony, and before she could go in, she had to sign the contract. That's really not what you do as a professional.
Bad business.
Frank Automitis is suing his wife's boyfriend, Willie Albrecht, for filing a false police report and harassment.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case number 2068, Automatis versus Albrecht.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Albrecht, I'm going to start with you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You are the current live-in boyfriend of the plaintiff's ex-wife?
Soon to be.
Of the plaintiff's wife.
Correct.
Mr. Adamus' complaint is that as a result of you making a call to the police, he was defamed when you said that he was trespassing. It was a false call to the police, and he wants to be compensated to the tune of $2,500. That's what the case is about. So in order to make this whole thing in context that I understand, how long have you been living with Mrs. Adamus?
Since June of 21.
How long do you know her?
Since January of 21.
Have you ever been married?
Yes, I have.
When and for how long?
Previously to April of this year, I was married for 15 years.
So you were married when you moved in with Mrs. Adamus?
Yeah.
Legally?
Legally.
Did you own your own home?
I did.
With your then wife?
Correct.
Did she stay in the house?
She did.
Does she have a boyfriend?
Yes, she does.
Do you like him?
No, I do not.
Does he live in the house?
Not at this time.
Did he ever?
Yes, he did.
And you didn't like it?
No, I did not.
So I want you to understand that there is maybe a reason why the plaintiff resents you living in a house that he owns with his still wife, and you're living there. Do you understand?
I do.
Because you sort of have the same situation. You're kindred spirits. Just a minute. Actually, you're kindred spirits.
Except my 15-year-old son also lives with this young man.
So who cares?
Oh.
Well, that's all right. But you understand why he might be annoyed.
I do, but...
Okay. So now, understanding all that, I want you to tell me, because I'm not totally sympathetic with you, sir, because if you and your wife are divorcing, you're entitled to move on with your life, and so is she entitled to move on with your life. Where do you live? You live in an apartment?
I live in a condominium.
Okay. How long have you lived in the condo?
I've lived when we separated March of 2021.
And who do you live with?
I currently live with my...
No. Who do you live with is the question.
My older son.
And how old is he?
19.
And how many bedrooms are in the condo?
2.
And what about you? Have a girlfriend?
Yes, I do.
Ever stay over?
My house? No.
Do you ever stay at her house?
No.
Does she live with her children?
Yes.
And is she divorced?
Yes.
And she stayed in the house?
Yes.
You see how all these things go? It's just, as the world turns, it's just what happens. Been there. Understand it all. Can either make it hard or difficult. Who pays the mortgage on the house?
Paid off.
Okay. So you have one teenage child, your wife has the other.
Yes.
And how close is the judgment to divorce to being finalized?
Not close.
Not close. Is that for financial reasons or custody reasons?
Financial.
Had to do with the house?
Yes.
Okay. How much is the house? I'm just fleshing this out.
Speculating.
Only because I'm a little bit of a yenta. Behind this purple robe is a little bit of a...
You know, with the housing market, being a CPA, you know, it's hard to say, you have to do, but I would say somewhere...
Why don't you give Sarah the address of the house, and we'll tell you what this estimate is.
California.
While she's looking that up, tell me when you and your wife purchased it.
2006, August of 2006.
And during the course of the marriage, were you employed all the time?
100%.
And what about your wife?
100%.
So you were both employed and both contributed to the house. Fair statement?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
It's 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. The estimate is $552,000.
And just for my own curiosity, what's the rub about the house?
The rub
come on, it's simple.
The rub about the house is she's now went in and spent an ungodly amount of money on fixer-upper after I moved out and went into a massive amount of debt. The house was fully paid off, and she's now in massive debt. She's put in fixer-upper.
No, don't look at her.
Okay, that's
look
what
at me.
Okay.
So she's fixed up the house after you moved out.
Correct.
And?
It's not a problem.
Just a second. So what's the problem?
There is no problem with the house. Meaning that, you know, we're still debating who's actually going to end up with the house. We haven't decided.
Well, you know, whoever wants to be in the house buys the other one out.
Exactly.
For $260,000.
Correct.
Okay? It would seem to me that would be easy.
I think so.
Okay. Now that I've satisfied the yenta in me, I'm getting back to the case. All right. You called the police. This incident, according to what I read, Mr. Adamus, happened on November 5th.
Correct.
You went to the house to pick up your son.
Correct.
Okay. Was that a meeting that had been arranged before?
I have visitation every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks when?
Every other weekend.
Well, so was this a weekend?
Yes, that was one where I was going to go pick him up.
Okay. Had you spoken to him?
Yes.
And so he was expecting you to come at a certain time?
Absolutely.
What time?
Approximately there, we'd arranged about 7:15, that 7:15, 7:30 that night.
Okay. And you had visitation fixed by the court, and you had been enjoying that with your son for a period of time?
Correct.
Okay. What happened when you got there at 7:15?
Well, on that particular visit, my wife had taken his key to the house. And I had...
No. I told you, don't look at her.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
I'm getting sympathetic with her. I just want you to know that.
Okay.
7:15, you went to pick up your son. And you were annoyed because your wife had taken your son's key away from him.
Correct.
And you thought your son should have his key because he was 15.
Yes.
And?
So at that particular time, I
don't look down.
Okay, look at me. I went into the house. I'd never been in that house since I moved out, and so I wanted...
How did you get into the house?
The door was open.
Okay, the door isn't wide open. You mean it was unlocked?
Unlocked.
Okay, so let's not say the door was open.
Okay,
the door was unlocked.
Correct.
Door was unlocked. You don't live there anymore. You live in a condo.
Correct.
Okay, did you ring the bell?
No.
Knock at the door?
Yes.
Nobody, but
Nobody
there's a bell.
answered.
There's a bell.
There was a bell.
There's a bell.
Yes.
Didn't ring the bell. Open the door. Now, open the door.
Yes.
Your house, I own half of it. I'm going to ask my wife a question.
Yes.
Keep going.
Walked into the house. At that particular time, she is sitting there with my son. At that particular time, I asked her to get a copy of the key, and we became into an argument. She didn't want me to have a copy of the key. And I tried to explain to her, without a copy of the key, he can't get in the house. If I drop him off at odd hours, and you don't have to be home. So then she got upset. At that point, then I never met Mr. Albrecht before this time. He comes storming down the stairs. Mr. Albrecht is then, I think Mr. Albrecht's coming to beat me up. He is storming down the stairs. I've since learned that Mr. Albrecht...
Just stop.
Okay.
Just pay careful attention to me. So far, you're in the wrong.
Okay.
Now, let me just tell you.
Okay.
So far, from a legal perspective...
Right.
And a common sense perspective...
Okay.
You're in the wrong. I'll explain why in a second.
So I walk into that house.
We got past that.
Okay.
We got past that. So now you want a copy of the key, and she says no. I don't care if you want to give it to your parakeet.
Okay.
You're not entitled to a copy of the key.
Okay.
Let's start right there.
Okay.
And let's start with my first point is if you're going there to pick up your son for a prearranged visit,
yes,
you don't walk into the house. You have a 15-year-old son. A 15-year-old son has a phone.
I tried to call him, yes.
Oh, he tried to call him. What happened?
He said he was there, he said...
Be very careful what you say to me.
Okay, he
You
was
called
there.
your son.
And I called my son, be ready to go. He said, okay, I'm ready to go.
That was at about 7 o'clock.
Yes, approximately.
What do you mean, yes, approximately?
Yeah, I was probably on my way to pick him up. And so when I come up there, I call him on the phone.
Okay, he's ready to go.
Yes, are you ready to go?
Okay, so you walked in.
Okay.
You had no right to enter the house.
Did not know that.
Well, you had no right to enter the house. You knew that your wife changed the locks.
I did not know at that time she had changed the lock because the door was open. I had not been...
No. Listen to me. You went there because... Mr. Adonis, you have to be a two-process thinker, sir, before you give me a lot of baloney. You knew that your old key didn't open the house. Otherwise, you would have said, your mother took away your key. I'll make you another key from my copy.
True.
True. Of course it's true. So, you know.
And later today.
I wasn't allowed to live with my dad and stepmom because they moved into a 55 and over neighborhood.
When?
They...
If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
Frank Automitis claims his wife's boyfriend, Willie Albrecht, wrongfully called the police while visiting his own house.
Okay, if you needed a copy of the key to a house that you partially own,
yes,
you would have had a key to the house.
Correct.
You didn't need a copy to make because you would have had one.
Okay.
So you knew that your old key didn't open the house. Otherwise, you would have said, your mother took away your key. I'll make you another key from my copy.
True.
True. Of course it's true. So, you know, so he called the police and he said you were trespassing.
No, he didn't say that at all.
What did he say?
He said he told me I was trespassing. Then he called on the phone, and when he's on the phone with the police department, he is telling them that I am now committing domestic violence. Now, that is a very serious charge. I mean, okay, we can debate about my access to the house, but when you call the police and say that I'm committing domestic violence, which is a crime in the state of California, that's a game changer. So
I want to ask you a question, Mr. Adonis. When you walked into the house and you saw your wife and your son, I want to know, when you walked in uninvited,
true,
your first words were, I want a copy of the key. That's what you said. You said, I want a copy of the key. Would you read that back to me, please, Whitney?
I'll go with that.
At that particular time, I asked her to get a copy of the key, and we became into an argument.
So now you're in an argument, and you're a trespasser. Your case is dismissed. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
very, very shocking.
She's absolutely correct, as she usually is.
I had no idea this was going to blow up into World War III.
Because he's all about winning. He didn't get his way. He was throwing a temper tantrum.
I feel that he's just trying to do whatever he can to keep me out of the picture.
He lives by his own rules.
He just simply wants me out of the way so he could take over.
Let the courts decide.
It's always so unfortunate when people divorce. I mean, the story is this. I could have written the script without even listening to the people. But they have two teenage boys, 15, 19 years old. One's chosen to live with the father. One's chosen to live with the mother. Clearly, the son said to him, Mom took away my key. She clearly took away his key for a reason. I didn't even want to get into what the reason was, but clearly she took away the key for a reason. Otherwise, she doesn't look like an unreasonable person. Her boyfriend doesn't look like an unreasonable guy. And he was flexing his muscles. And the fight is over the house, because I gather that's the only real asset they have. Yeah. Anyway, unfortunate when people don't realize that they have to love their children more than they hate each other.
So true.
Case 2069, Hastings versus Kammer. All parties, please step forward.
Ryan Hastings is suing his former roommates, Peyton Kammer, for security deposits, personal belongings, and filing a false restraining order.
Mr. Hastings, you and the defendant were roommates? I'm not quite understanding.
Yes, correct.
Clearly, whether you were roommates or in a relationship. What was it?
It was just roommates.
When did you start to be roommates?
In September of 2020.
Did you know each other before?
Yes.
How?
We were just friends that met at a party and hung out often.
Starting when?
That was in December of 2019.
And what made you decide to room together?
We were both looking for a place to live, so since we both needed that, we found this apartment together.
2 bedrooms?
Correct.
And you moved in with animals,
Correct.
I understand from the complaint.
Correct.
Cats?
Yes.
How many?
I had 2.
I had 2.
I didn't ask you anything yet. You had 2. And Miss Kammer had 2. Any other animals?
No.
So you started to live together during COVID?
Correct.
Were you working?
Yes.
Was Miss Kammer working?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
It was $13.65.
And you each paid half?
Correct.
So far, correct? Was everything okay in 2020? September, October, November, December?
As far as rent?
No, as far as the living arrangement.
Oh, in 2020, yeah, we just had many squabbles, but overall, we were just fine.
I'm going to ask you the same question. In 2020, everything okay?
No.
What happened in 2020?
It was emotional warfare since I moved in with him. There was arguments with everything, even simple things like cleaning the dishes, just nonstop. I was terrified of him living with him. I couldn't bring anything up without it being an argument.
Okay, so prior to moving in with Mr. Hastings, where did you live?
With my parents.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
Is this the first time you had an apartment?
Yes.
And how far away were your parents from this apartment?
Probably like 10 minutes.
If you were terrified, you should have moved home.
I wasn't allowed to.
You weren't allowed to because?
Because I wasn't allowed to live with my dad and stepmom because they moved into a 55 and over neighborhood.
When?
They...
If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
They moved in a little after I moved into my apartment. I moved into my apartment to prepare for them moving out.
I just don't want to hear drama. If you had fights over who's going to clean the dishes, I don't want to hear terrified, unless you're terrified. And if you're terrified and you're 21 years old, you go back to where you came from, to your parents' house, if you're terrified. May not have liked it, but that's just kid drama. So, squabbles in 2020. Your lawsuit says that she disposed of your belongings. She filed a restraining order.
Yes.
As a result of the restraining order, you were evicted from the apartment.
Yes.
It was a false restraining order. You hired a lawyer to appeal the finding of the judge.
Yes.
That you had harassed her because this restraining order was based on harassment.
Yes.
May I see a copy of it, please?
I have a copy of the restraining order.
Of the order or what it was based on?
It said what it has the whole thing. It says what it was based on.
Yeah, I see what she has. It doesn't look like it was what it was based on. You do a write-up of what it was based on.
On the front page, in a little box, it has a little description of what happened.
Okay. So the judge who heard this case, and I'm assuming everything in this write-up is true. On the above date, which was the 7th of September 2021. On the above date and time, defendant and the plaintiff engaged in a verbal argument over household chores. The defendant then made comments to the plaintiff that he would go crazy on her and raised his fist. The defendant stated this multiple times and started shaking in anger, causing the plaintiff to be in fear for her life. And you had a hearing on this?
Yes.
You had a hearing on this. You told this to a judge?
Yes.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what you told the judge, or did you tell the judge anything?
I told the judge that I was raising my voice, but I was standing a good amount of distance away from her at the time, and that I was shaking because I wasn't being listened to, and that was it. There was no physical interaction there, only verbal interaction.
Did the judge say to you, how would you describe shaking in anger because you weren't being listened to?
I was shaking just because I was angry. I was just trying to keep my composure.
Well, that would frighten me.
Ryan Hastings claims his former roommate, Peyton Kammer, owes for a security deposit and personal belongings. Peyton is countersuing for rent and emotional distress.
Now, tell me, did the judge say to you, how would you describe shaking in anger because you weren't being listened to?
Can you repeat that question?
I don't know how you were shaking. You mean you...
I was shaking as in, like, I was shaking just because I was angry. I wasn't being listened to. I was trying to keep my composure, so I was just shaking.
Well, that would frighten me. Actually, I don't know whether I put you out of your house, but that would frighten me. Mr. Hastings, where are you living now?
I just moved into a new apartment.
With whom?
Myself.
Better?
Yes, and my cats.
Perfect. Yourself and your cats. Great. Now, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Hastings, if that happened to me with a man who was larger than I was, that might frighten me if he appeared out of control. So I'm dismissing that part of your complaint, which seeks damages for a false restraining order.
Okay.
What you actually just testified to me, and I took everything that she said in her complaint against you. I didn't even have to ask her. I wanted to know what you told the judge.
Of course.
Then it was a reasonable issuing of a protective order, just to make sure that it appeared to me what you were testifying to is that she couldn't tell the difference whether you were composing yourself or whether you were out of control. Okay, so it was...
May I interject and just say that the restraining order was repealed and remanded, saying that the court did not find sufficient evidence to impose the order. And
whether it was or not, I don't care what... I'm not sitting as an appellate court.
Okay.
I'm sitting as a trier of fact for the first time in your civil action. And what you told me, in my judgment, was sufficient for a judge to say, you know, I don't want to preside over an assault case or a homicide case. This guy says he was shaking. She says he was shaking in anger. You say I was shaking to try to maintain my composure. Well, I'm not going to worry about them. Let him go find someplace else to live, which is what he did. So I think that that's reasonable. Money owed for return of security deposit. Now, he was put out of the apartment. He put in security deposit.
Correct.
And he was put out of the apartment. How much security deposit did he put in?
$682.
Are you still living in the apartment?
I am.
Okay. When he moved out of the apartment as a result of this restraining order, was there any damage in the apartment that he caused?
No.
Then you have to give him back his $682, because any damage that would have resulted since he moved out would be your damage, okay? That's fair enough. $682, that's your security deposit, sir. Return of belongings. Okay, so when you were told that you had to vacate the apartment, tell me what belongings you left in the apartment which you think she still has, which belong to you.
I do not believe she has anything of mine left in that apartment.
Well, what do you think she owes you for?
I am seeking the money for those items because they were thrown away.
What items?
So I had a bed.
Just a second.
Yeah.
You had a bed and there was a major flea problem in the apartment as a result of your cats.
Correct.
Okay, she threw away the bed. What else?
Okay, there was a Nintendo Switch.
Do you know what that is?
Nintendo Switch? I never found that. I believe he took that the night with him.
Okay, she didn't have it. She didn't throw it away. What else?
I also had a hookah that was in there.
What, a hookah?
Yeah.
Do you have his hookah?
No.
Go. What's next? Okay, if you have to think about it that hard.
I'm sorry.
Sir, we're finished. She owes you back your security deposit. Okay. That's $682. You have a counterclaim. Most of it is nonsense. Your counterclaim for emotional distress. Forget that. Only one emotionally distressed usually in this room is me. Money owed for the month's rent, for a final month's rent. What is that?
He didn't pay the month of September. He was late on it.
The month of September.
But that would have been the $682.
Was he there in September?
September 1st would have been the day that the money was due.
No, when did he vacate the apartment as a result of your restraining order?
September 7th, when the night of the mistake, but he was late on rent often.
$682, that's what he gets.
Yes.
As he gets a security deposit back. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I don't really disagree with anything. Everything went perfectly the way I would have hoped it went.
I'm glad I got my security deposit back, but I could have definitely been compensated for the items that I lost.
I mean, he got a little money out of it, but way less than he thought he would. It's a good day.
Sometimes I can get anxious, but I would not hurt anybody physically.
I hope he gets some help.
Me and my cats are the best trio.
You know, I remember from a very early period in my life when I started college that I wasn't really good at having a roommate.
I think you must have passed that on to me.
I did, especially one that you don't love. You know, it's hard enough to live with somebody that you love. Mm-hmm. You know, they get irritated. You know, she said they fought over dishes and not doing the dishes. Well, you know, you've lived with us, so, you know, I have that argument all the time. But I love him.
Yeah.
It's very hard to deal with somebody schmutz that you don't love.
Got to be careful and pick someone you really think and cross your fingers and toes.
Actually, Sarah, I don't think you should pick anybody. I think that what you should do, if you can, is live in a shoebox by yourself, if that's all you can afford. Yeah. You know how many roommate cases we've done just in the last couple of years?
All with stress and aggravation intertwined immensely.
Immensely, and that's without romance involved. Oh, yeah. I mean, this young man, who looks like a perfectly reasonable young man and very honest, said he told the judge that he was shaking. I said, well, describe.
Scruggs is suing his ex-wife, Lori Watsager, for the cost of tools she wrongfully sold.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2189, Scruggs versus Watsager.
Thank you. Mr. Scruggs, you have brothers and sisters?
No, ma'am.
Were your father and your mother? Who predeceased whom?
My mother died when I was 17 years old, and my father died in 2019 after a long-time illness, and he had his tools at my property.
You and the defendant were married for 10 years.
Correct.
You separated in what year?
2016.
And when you left, she stayed in the house.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Sometime prior to 2016, according to you, you borrowed some tools of your father's.
That's correct. I actually
Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the tools that you borrowed from your father were left in the marital home 2016, 17, 18. Your father died in 2019. You were divorced in 2000.
We were divorced in 2019 was the final judgment.
And then things sort of got away from you. So now we're in 2023, and you want your father's tools back or money for them, according to you, $10,000 worth.
Yes, ma'am.
Ridiculous. Let's start out with ridiculous. Where were you in 2019?
2019 is when my father died, and shortly after he died, I was taking care of his affairs, and we still had an ongoing court case that consisted of our minor children at the time, and I was under advisement of my attorney.
Don't tell me what your attorney advised you. It's hearsay. You did nothing with regard to the tools. In what year did you borrow the tools from your father?
It was 2013. I brought the tools over to my storage shed, and...
Mr. Scruggs, you gotta let it go. You haven't had the tools in 7 years. You've been out of the house since 2016? 2016.
What, Your Honor?
And you've been, look at you, and you've been living. Who is this?
This is my current wife.
So you got divorced, you remarried. When did you remarry?
I got remarried in 2018.
Well, so you found time to get married, right? Just a second. That's a yes or a no.
Yes,
you found time to get married.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a big wedding?
No, ma'am.
You had a small wedding. Do you have any children?
Yes, ma'am.
With your current wife?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
One child.
How old?
She's 5.
So you managed to have a baby. All I'm suggesting to you is, sir, how many different jobs did you have since 2016?
I've had 2 different employers.
Since 2016, so you also looked for another job and found another job. So let's see. You got married, you had a child, you changed jobs, but all of a sudden in 2023, the tools are important. Now, how many children did you and the defendant have?
2 children.
How old are they?
I have a 14-year-old and an 8-year-old.
You pay child support?
No, ma'am.
How come?
Because one of the children lives with me full-time.
For how long?
She's lived with me full-time for approximately 3 years.
But when you and the defendant separated, she was living with her mother.
Only for a short amount of time.
How long?
Probably about a year. And I paid support during that time.
And the other child?
Is 45-55 split.
So that's why you don't pay child support?
Correct.
And do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. And at some point, so what do you want to say and why?
Just that the reason we were not able to do anything about the tools was that she had an order of protection.
The tools are stupid.
Was that she had an order of protection against him.
The tools are stupid. Orders of protection don't disqualify you from coming to small claims court.
They said that it wasn't able to.
Oh, no, that's what's a they? Oz? You were allowed to come for small claims court, file a petition and say, these tools belong to me. He didn't do it during the divorce. He didn't do it before your wedding. He didn't do it after your wedding. He didn't do it before your daughter was born. He didn't do it till after your daughter was born. She's now 5 years old. It's 10 years after the tools were moved from your father's house into the marital home. That would be a fair statement. 10 years. You said 2013. We're now in 2023.
Correct. And,
okay.
Your Honor, I do have here where my dad filed a police report where he was trying to recover the tools.
Well, unfortunately...
And the defendant here obviously lied to this officer here and told them that I didn't retrieve...
So what? I want you to forget $10,000, sir. It's not happening for you. Put a period. The only thing that I'm going to consider is she did, in fact, sell the tools. That she acknowledges. Now, she can't sell something that doesn't belong to her. And in what year did you sell the tools?
I sold the tools. Our divorce was signed in 2018. They had gotten married. He'd quit paying a mortgage, so I had to find a way to pay.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Can't you just tell me, in what year did you sell the tools?
It was on and off between August and October of 2018.
So you sold them piecemeal?
Yes, ma'am.
And you remember that, so you must have put an ad someplace.
I put an ad on Craigslist because I needed to pay the mortgage. And I didn't only sell his tools, I sold jewelry that was mine.
I get it, but you sold it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have an inventory about... First of all, they weren't his tools, they were his father's tools. But I've asked him whether or not he was an only child. He is an only child, so he would stand to inherit these tools unless there was another child that he doesn't know about because his mother predeceased his father. So...
Your Honor, I do have an inventory from that my
I
father
don't
did.
care. Understand this. I don't care. How do you know it was $1,000 if you sold them over a 3 or 4 month period? And if the answer to that is I don't know, or I pulled out the number from my behind, then that's an answer. But not that I sold the tools to put food on the table for my children. That's not an answer.
And later today.
I do have a witness that I brought with me, my daughter, who actually did see.
You sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that? Be very careful, Miss Vieira. Are you sure you want to put her there for me to question? Are you sure?
Andrew Scruggs claims his ex-wife, Lori Watsager, wrongfully sold his father's tools and kept the money.
You let it lapse too long. Your father died 4 years ago. You and the defendant are separated for 6 years. The tools were there for 10 years. Courts don't care. We use a whole bunch of things, statute of limitations, we use latches, we use all kinds of terms when people don't act quickly to assert their rights to something. Because we don't want to be bothered with what happened 10 years ago and 12 years ago with this kind of nonsense. We do it with certain things that are important. Crimes are important. So sometimes we let statute of limitations get blurry, but not this. But you sold the tools. You had no right to sell the tools, so he's entitled to the money that you got for selling the tools. Now, according to you, you sold all the tools for how much?
$1,000.
And how do you know it was $1,000? Because you say you sold it over a period of time.
Because I have the paperwork where I had submitted so many payments to the mortgage because I sold them just to pay the mortgage and to feed the kids.
Listen, I'm going to get out my violin, madam. I asked you a specific question.
Yes, ma'am.
My specific question is, how do you know it was $1,000 if you sold them over a 3 or 4 month period? And if the answer to that is I don't know, or I pulled out the number from my behind, then that's an answer. But not that I sold the tools to put food on the table for my children. That's not an answer. How do you know it was $1,000?
Because I had put that money into the bank. I paid the mortgage with it.
Your Honor, you're exactly right. The defendant here is a liar and a manipulator.
Just a second.
And she will tell you whatever she thinks that you want to hear.
Well, that's true, sir. And I don't believe she sold the tools for $1,000, but I don't know that.
Because
and you wait, just a
for
second.
Just a
second.
I
What?
guarantee you.
Oh,
I guarantee she made $13,000, $14,000.
No, that's possible, sir. Prove it. Proof. Just a second. It's your burden of proof. You have to prove to me that she sold them for $13,000. And even then, you're late in bringing this suit. But you can't prove that.
Well, because she is a manipulator is why this ex parte order and
listen
all this,
to me. I don't care. You're not following me. Courts, not me personally, courts, I am the court. We don't care because what you did was wait too long to assert a claim. You waited too long. According to you, you had COVID and the pandemic came in between and, having another child and getting married to somebody else. All those were reasons you had personal issues why you didn't assert your rights in a timely fashion. So we're not going back to try to recreate something that you can't recreate. And neither can she, actually, because you don't have to keep track of something that happened 3-4 years ago.
Well, even in the agreed...
We're done. You have to understand.
Well, even our agreed judgment that she signed, I've texted her not 3 months ago trying to retrieve items.
Just a second. You have a judgment of divorce that says in the judgment of divorce she is to return the tools to you.
No.
Okay.
The tools are nothing in that judgment.
Nothing. Okay. You sold them for $1,000?
Yes, ma'am.
You can't sell somebody else's property. And that's all that he can prove is what you say you sold them for. And I'm not sure that that's what you sold them for. But he waited too long. And the only thing that I can establish at this point is that you sold somebody else's tools for $1,000. That's it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
The defendant, she obviously is a liar and manipulator, and she got a lot more than even the $10,000, and these were what I considered family heirlooms.
No, actually, no. I've got the documents for that.
Even after my father died, I looked at her and said, we need to just fix this, and I came to her and said,
Because he can't let me go.
If it's a matter of money, let me give you the money for the tools, and she still was selling the tools to, we think, her best friend.
Because they don't want me happy.
I'm sure glad that it's over, and hopefully we can coexist and take care of our son that we have together.
I'd like to be friends. I mean, it's for the children, anything to make the children happy.
You know what's more fascinating to me than anything else, and I have to when we leave today, I'm going to go back and look up the doctrine of latches.
It was a brief footnote, I think, in one of our case books.
Yeah, right, because we're talking 60 years ago when I went to law school. And I seem to remember you had both a statute of limitations, which was a formalized statute for certain causes of action, and you had to bring them within a certain period of time. That, I'm sure they taught you in law school. But I seem to remember, Sarah, there was a doctrine of latches which discusses why you're supposed to bring an action in a timely fashion.
More of a common sense argument as opposed to a
preservation of evidence, because people do away with it. And this is a perfect example.
I think they call it ripeness now, but same concept.
Maybe.
More of a way for judges like yourself to be able to use common sense in cases like this and say, there's no evidence that's going to be preserved 10 years later. You had all these opportunities. Common sense tells me, therefore, it's not ripe. Yeah. And I think it's a good doctrine, because although there might not be a set statute for this particular cause of action, it doesn't mean that evidence just appears out of nowhere that you're going to be able to use.
That you don't preserve.
Exactly.
That you don't preserve it. And certainly, he made a whole lifetime for himself in 10 years. Divorced, remarried, had a child, had changed jobs, changed careers.
A lot can happen in 10 years.
Yeah, but what's not going to happen is you getting the tools back.
Yeah.
Case 2189, Hernandez versus Vieira. All parties, please step forward.
Sofia Hernandez is suing her dog sitter, Cherie Vieira, for vet bills after her dog was injured during Cherie's care.
Miss Hernandez, how old is your puppy?
She's 6 months, Your Honor.
And when she was 4 months old, you needed a home sitter for your dog, or
Yes.
you needed a place to board her for a weekend, long weekend. You live on an Army base.
A naval base.
Naval base. Does the defendant live on the base as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
And she approached you, or whatever, and said that she was available for sitting. Is that what you do to make some extra money?
Yes, Your Honor.
And on the 22nd of December of last year, which is when this incident occurred, you dropped the dog off at the defendant's home.
December 16th.
Was the 16th?
Yes.
And when you dropped the puppy off at the defendant's home, she was in perfectly fine shape.
Yes.
She looked very sweet.
Thank you.
So what happened when she dropped the puppy off at your house? I want you to tell me something that I'm going to believe, that you and your mother were in the room with your 10-year-old sister, and you saw what happened with the dog.
Yeah.
Just a second. I want you to make sure that that's what you're telling me.
Sofia Hernandez claims her dog sitter, Cherie Vieira, is responsible for vet bills after her dog Dolce was injured during Cherie's care.
Because Ms. Hernandez has an outstanding vet bill for surgery on the dog's leg, which was broken, while in your care.
Yes, Your Honor.
So why don't you tell me how that happened?
Ms. Hernandez brought Dolce to our house. We took her in, and we had also another dog.
I want you to tell me, you. When you say you took her in, did you or somebody else?
It's a family effort. My children also help take care of the dogs. I started watching dogs because my youngest child was deathly afraid of dogs. She was bit by a dog at the age of 2. So we started this so she could learn how to take care of dogs properly, know their signs and things like that. And we took Dolce into my daughter's room.
Which daughter?
Into my youngest daughter's room.
Is that you?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. And how old is your youngest daughter?
She's 10.
Okay, so once you took her into your daughter's room, she was alone with the puppy?
No, all 3 of us were in the room. What we like to do is
No, I don't want you to tell me what you like to do. Okay. I want you to be consistent with what you put in your answer. You were all in your daughter's room?
Yes.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
Just 1 second. Okay. So your husband was with another dog in the yard.
Yes.
So I brought this dog into my daughter's room, your 10-year-old daughter's room, to settle down.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then you don't know what happened because you weren't watching.
I was actually...
No, you were not watching. That's what it says here.
Well, I was taking pictures.
It doesn't make any difference. You weren't watching. You don't know what happened. If you were taking pictures that would be on your camera.
I have pictures here of Dolce that I was actually sending to
No,
Ms.
I don't
Hernandez.
care. It would be on your camera if you were taking pictures. And if you were taking pictures, then you would have exactly what happened with the dog that caused the dog to have a broken leg. But you don't have those pictures. Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that you were not watching and you did not see what happened at the moment the dog was injured?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
But I do have a witness that I brought with me, my daughter, who actually did see as I was sending pictures to Ms. Hernandez.
You sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that? Be very careful, Ms. Vieira. Are you sure you want to put her there for me to question? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't think, I don't think so. But it's your choice. Let's go. I want you to tell me something that I'm going to believe, that you and your mother were in the room with your 10-year-old sister and you saw what happened with the dog.
Yeah.
Just a second. I want you to make sure that that's what you're telling me. So you were in the room?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Your first name is?
Abigail.
I'd like to see a picture of Abigail in the room with the dog when you were sending pictures, allegedly, to the plaintiff of the dog. I just want to see pictures of her in the room.
Your Honor, I did not make pictures of those.
Why not? She was there. You were taking pictures of the dog. I assume your 10-year-old's room is not the size of this courtroom. So if you were taking pictures, Abigail would be in those pictures.
Your Honor, I actually have a picture of her leg after I was bit by Dolce.
I don't care after you were bit by Dolce. You were bit by the puppy because she was injured.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. That was after she was injured.
Yes.
I want to see a picture of your daughter that you were taking pictures of, allegedly to send to the plaintiff to show her how the dog was adjusting.
I do not have pictures of that,
Right.
Your Honor.
Yeah. Miss Vieira, do you want to know the truth? I don't believe you were in the room with your daughter, either one of them, and the puppy. I think that you left the puppy with your 10-year-old, and you don't know what happened. That's what I believe. And whether I believe, and it's accurate or not accurate, the dog was injured in your care. So you're responsible for the surgical bill. It's that simple. Dog got a broken leg in your care with enough adults there to watch the dog, your husband, the older daughter, and you put her in the room with your 10-year-old because you thought it would be cute. Your 10-year-old wanted to play with her. That's what happened. Can I see the vet bill, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I have the urgent care bill and the surgery bill as well.
So the invoice was $58.18?
For the surgery.
And $862. $66.08, judgment for the plaintiff. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
You know, I'm happy because those vet bills are really high. You know, it's not something that you could take on at the time.
I was in the room with the dog. The dog jumped from the floor, and it was a freak accident. But
my dog was healthy, you know. She had just been at the vet. She's gotten her shots. She was healthy.
I still don't know. I researched online. I think maybe that the dog already had an injury prior. She was at my house 25 minutes.
I would never drop off my dog like that.
She jumped up to retrieve a toy out of my daughter's hand from the floor, a fluffy carpet, and she landed and cried.
With a pre-existing condition, I would watch her myself.
About 3 minutes after, I called her mom to let her know that she was hurt, injured.
You know, my heart dropped. You know, I was upset we didn't go on the trip, but just my baby. Turned around.
She wanted to know how bad it was because she wanted to go on her trip, and I told her it was bad enough for her dog to bite me.
We took her straight to the urgent care.
I asked her to come back to get her dog. I didn't want to move the dog, so she came back and had us bring the dog out.
She had a fractured leg.
Freak accident, kind of feel like, I don't know, it wasn't fair.
They didn't give me one. They just ignored my messages asking for payment.
I'm glad the dog's okay.
Dulce's great. Her leg is healed. She's on a recovery program.
So, no issue?
Simple.
Dog's in your care? The dog didn't break its leg itself?
Yep.
You know, common sense dictates to me that they brought the puppy in to play with the 10-year-old. Otherwise, they would have had photographs of the other daughter in the room. It didn't happen, but it really doesn't matter because
no bad intentions, no, you know, nothing was done on purpose, but
no, but it was negligent. Sure, because if you allow a 10-year-old,
if a dog breaks a leg, it doesn't break it on its own. Yeah.
Shanice Grimm is suing her client, Dallas Lee, for child care services, late fees, and property damage.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2175, Grimm versus Lee.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Miss Grimm, in what state do you live?
Missouri.
In what county?
Jackson.
You have a daycare center?
An in-home child care, yes.
For how long?
I started September of 2022.
What is your house like?
I have a single-family home with a finished basement and then like an attic type. It's 2 bedrooms.
House has 2 bedrooms?
No, up in the attic has 2 bedrooms. It's technically a 3-bedroom house, but it has made 6 rooms.
And how many children do you have?
I currently have 7.
How old are they?
14, 13, 11, 8, 5, and 3, and 1, 18 months.
3 and 18 months.
I'm sorry, she's 4 now. She just turned 4.
So the older ones go to school. Does the 5-year-old go to school?
Yes.
And the 8-year-old goes to school?
Correct.
So you have 2 little ones at home?
My 4-year-old goes to early childhood, half a day.
So you have 1 child at home during the day?
Correct.
And 1 half a day?
Yes.
And you have 3 children?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are they?
I now have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 5-month-old.
And those were the children that you enrolled in her daycare center?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scrim, what kind of licensing do you have, an application that you have to make in order to run an in-home daycare center in Missouri?
So in the state of Missouri, as long as you have under 6 children, you do not have to have a license.
As long as you have 6 children in total in the house, or 6 children
that I'm watching?
That you're watching?
Correct. Because my school children are not considered watching, like under the law.
Well, you certainly have to watch your 18-month-old.
Yes, he's the only one. That's why I've always kept 5 children or less.
It is your claim that Miss Lee entered her children into your program. She paid you for a certain period of time. She owes you for 2 weeks.
Correct.
And were those 2 weeks that her children were actually in care?
Correct.
Which 2 weeks were those?
They are the last 2 weeks of October.
Of 2022?
Correct.
And the children were in your program?
Correct.
Miss Lee, were the children in Miss Scrim's program the last 2 weeks in October?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
Did you pay her for the last 2 weeks in October?
No, ma'am, I did not.
How much were you supposed to pay her?
For the last 2 weeks was supposed to be $600 because our agreement was $600 every 2 weeks.
Okay, so it was supposed to be $600.
Yes, ma'am.
So now the ball is in your court so far, Ms. Scrim. We're not talking about a late fee. We're just talking about these 2 weeks.
Correct.
First, tell me your reason for removing the children.
I removed my children out of her care because my children, every time that I picked them up, it was either they were harmed or injured, or my son, my 3-year-old, would tell me something had happened while I was gone at work in her care. My son had told me on numerous accounts that she hit him herself, and then he also told me that her 15-year-old son, or 14, I'm sorry, had also spanked him. And when I did ask him, or I asked her actually, I said, "Who is Trey?" Because he said, "Mommy, Trey hit me. We were getting in the car." They normally do help me get in the car with my 3 children, seeing I have one who's barely walking.
You get going all over the place.
Yes, ma'am. So they normally help me get in the car with my children, so they were outside with us. And my son said, "Mommy, Trey hit me like this." I didn't know any Trey, so I asked her, "Who is Trey?" And she said, "That's my son." And he said, "That's me." He was standing right there next to her. He said, "I'm Trey." And I said, "Bryson said that you hit him." And he said, "Yes, I hit Bryson." He said, "I popped him because Bryson wasn't doing right. Bryson didn't want to go to timeout."
On what day was that?
That was on October 25th.
And what was the last day that your children attended?
October 27th.
Okay, so despite the fact that Trey, your Trey?
Yes, ma'am.
Slapped the 3-year-old, said that he slapped the 3-year-old, you let him stay there for an extra 2 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Just that's it, yes. Now, where were you working that you had your children in daycare?
I was working as a CNA.
What is that?
A certified nurse's assistant.
Where?
It's a
nursing
like a
home?
Rehab. Yes, ma'am.
When did you start working there?
I started working there in September.
September of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Beginning of September?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you stop working there?
I stopped working there October 27th. That was my last day.
If I were to call, would they tell me that they terminated you or you quit?
I quit.
Did you quit on the 27th?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about now? Are you working?
I am.
Who are you working for?
I work through a temp agency, working per diem at different locations as a CNA.
And who takes care of your children?
My stepmom. My children,
Just a second. And when did you start that job?
I started that job about 4 weeks ago.
So in December?
Yes, ma'am. Late November or so.
You left the children there until the end of October. It couldn't have been so disturbing for you, madam, to leave the children there until the end of October, another 6 weeks, if you felt as if they weren't getting adequate care. And if you did, that would be on you.
Shanice Grimm claims her client, Dallas Lee, refused to pay for child care services. Dallas is countersuing for lost wages and emotional distress.
So a relative has been taking care of your children?
Yes, ma'am. Not all three of them. I had to send my two sons because I had to rearrange my daycare situation. I had to send them back to Texas to be with their dad.
So two of them went back to their father?
Yes, ma'am.
And who do you live with here?
I live with my dad.
What does he do?
My dad is a nuclear medicine technologist.
So your stepmom takes care of one of the children?
My 5-month-old daughter, yes, ma'am.
Who's in the house?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to tell me why you didn't pay her for the last 2 weeks.
So my children began in her care September 12th. September 13th, she sent me a text message while I was at work, and she said, I want to let you know Lil Mama was bit today by my 1-year-old on her cheek. She sent me a picture. I have this.
Not interested. Okay. I mean, it's not that I'm disinterested. It's that don't show me anything from September, madam. You kept your children with her into October and through the end of October. And if anything was so concerning to you that you thought your children would be at risk, I'm certain that you would have discussed it with your father, and your father would have said to you, don't speak. Okay. And your father would have said to you, if you have a problem with the children, don't let them stay there. What you did, okay, I can see that you're dying to tell me something. What?
Yes, ma'am. My daughter had no other choice but to keep her children in care because I work a full-time job.
Let me explain something to you, sir. Mm-hmm. Your daughter was living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. There is always an alternative, sir. I have young grandchildren, and I would say if I was legitimately concerned for their health and safety, I don't care what it is, stay home and take care of your children. You'll have a roof over your head until you find appropriate daycare. And if you didn't do that, then you're not much of a grandfather.
Well,
you can't use something that happened in September or early October to say, well, that's why I didn't pay the last 2 weeks. So you can't make excuses, sir. I'm telling you, I'm a grandmother and I've had little children. I don't care what you had to do. Quit my job, whatever that job is, and say, we'll all stay home and take care of the children until you find, or you stay home and take care of the children. I'll provide you with whatever basics you need until you get the right daycare. And if you didn't do that, don't tell me that your daughter didn't have a choice. There is always a choice when your babies are concerned.
In our estimation at that time, we were giving her some hard life lessons because she does now have 3 children, and there are going to be some difficulties in this living situation. There are going to be some things. So what we were doing, we're giving her some tough love and saying, hey, you cannot give up just because the chips are down or because things happen. You have to try to figure things out.
Well, that would be on you. That's not on her. This is not her daughter. It's your daughter.
Absolutely.
And your grandchildren, sir.
Absolutely.
And if you want to teach her some real hard lessons and say you got to stay with the daycare, even though you're dissatisfied.
We said give her a chance because it was the first day.
So.
It was the first incident, first day. We said give her a chance. Things happen sometimes.
What I don't want to hear is from you, who seem like a very intelligent man, a working man, is my daughter had no choice. Your daughter has a choice. Her choice is to say to you, Dad, please, I have to find the right daycare. I have to stop working at this job. I may need a month. You may not have liked her previous irresponsible behavior, right?
Correct.
But the deed is done. She got 3 young children.
Beautiful children.
Right? So what you do is when you have 3 young, beautiful children, you protect them.
Absolutely.
And if you're not smart enough to protect them yourself, you got to rely on your father who's smart enough to do that. What I'm saying to you is your daughter used this lady's services and she has to pay for it. She may not send her children back, but your statement that you were so anxious to make to me, which is my daughter had no choice, she did have a choice, sir. She did have a choice. Before I would let my children stay in a place where I actually believed that they were being abused, because that's what she's suggesting. I mean, she's not suggesting that this young man, who I'm not condoning hitting a 3-year-old, gave him a slap on the rear end. I'm not condoning that. But there were no injuries to him. I don't know whether you've done it. I don't know whether she's done it to her child. You certainly don't want a daycare provider's child to discipline a 3-year-old.
Absolutely.
That's not what it's about.
But after the first incident, what we were trying to teach her is that you don't just throw in the towel, because Ms. Graham was just starting her service up. And
September 5th.
So we understand that there are going to be some hiccups and some things that she has to fix as she comes across them. Mm-hmm. And so she's a young lady. My daughter's a young lady. So as an older man, I'm trying to support 2 individuals to build their lives up. And so I told my daughter, I don't like that she was bitten, but at least she came forward very quickly and told you, so leave them there for now. And if anything else transpires, then we can start to look at things then. Yes, ma'am.
Who do you work for, sir?
I work for the Veterans Administration.
And how long have you worked for the Veterans Administration?
21 years.
Do you get paid every 2 weeks?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say your boss at the VA all of a sudden decided they didn't like the work you were doing, and you left and they owed you 2 weeks' pay because you had actually worked for the 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
And you sued them for those 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You worked there. You said, well, we didn't like the quality of his work for those 2 weeks. Well, then you fire him. But you pay him. It's like going to a restaurant. My favorite analogy is you go into your favorite restaurant where you get a steak.
Mm-hmm.
And you order a steak, medium, Pittsburgh medium. Steak comes, you cut into it, you take a bite. Oh my God, you say, I don't like the way this tastes. You take the plate, you spit out the bite if you're smart. Call the waiter over and say, this is a bad steak, right?
Absolutely.
And the waiter takes it off the bill or you order something else. Now you cut into that same steak. You taste, you say, this tastes terrible. Maybe the next bite will taste better. Before you know it, you've finished the whole steak. Waiter comes over to take your clean plate. You say, this steak was awful. I didn't like it. It was bad. Well, what'd you eat it for? But if you ate the steak, you got to pay for it. If you take a bite and say it's no good, I'm in your corner. Send it back. But your daughter ate the steak. She used her services for 2 weeks and didn't pay her.
Well, we can't say that she used her services because there are other pieces of evidence that we have.
Well, you mean you're talking about that sometimes she left the children with her husband?
Yes.
Yeah. Baloney. Your daughter had the benefit of daycare so that she could work. If you're not satisfied with the service, you stop using the service. If you continue to use the service despite the fact that you're not satisfied with it, you gotta pay for it. That's America. You got paid, your father got paid, she gets paid.
Shanice Grimm has accused her client, Dallas Lee, of refusing to pay for child care services. Dallas claims Shanice wrongfully disciplined and neglected her children.
Your daughter had the benefit of daycare so that she could work.
Absolutely.
And she had the benefit of daycare from this lady that enabled your daughter to make money.
But if we're talking breach of contract, the contract was breached when the husband watched the child. And
now you're not teaching your daughter responsibility. Now you're making excuses. Now you're not teaching your daughter responsibility. Your daughter worked to make money. You worked those last 2 weeks, didn't stay home with your grandchildren. You made money.
Absolutely.
The only one that didn't make money and had her 3 children for those 2 weeks was the plaintiff. She ate the steak. She used the service. She didn't have anybody else. It's not as if, well, I had to hire somebody else to take care of the kids the last 2 weeks, even though it was in my deal. So that's why I'm not paying them. She worked, you worked, she worked. And if her husband, if she ran out to the store and left her husband, unless you're telling me that that was such a breach of the agreement that your daughter took the children out of her program. Did she? No, she did not. She didn't say, I'm not allowing your husband to take care of my children, even if it's just for an hour. I'm taking my children out of the program. Dad, can you help me out for the next couple of weeks until I find something else? But you can't eat the steak, which she did. Now you can sit down.
Can I say one more thing?
Not if you want to continue to look foolish. Now you're not teaching her responsibility.
Well,
now you're not teaching her responsibility. I don't want to have to teach you responsibility.
Well, you don't have to. I'm a veteran. I know what responsibility is. But when you are promoting your program as one thing, but your service is another, I cannot say that if Bobby Flay is cooking the steak.
It doesn't matter who was cooking the steak. It was whether you ate the steak. It's whether you ate the steak.
I get what you're saying, Judge. But if it's promoted as Bobby Flay cooking it and Bob Burger cooked it, and I don't like the taste, then those are two different things.
Oh, no, sir. If you're promoting Bobby Flay as cooking the steak and you find, or the hamburger, and you find out that Bobby Flay's younger brother was cooking the steak or was cooking the burger, and either way, if the burger is no good, you're not going to eat it. But you can't eat it and say, well, I really thought I was getting a Bobby Flay hamburger, and I didn't get a Bobby Flay hamburger, so I'm not going to pay for it, even though I ate it. Now you can sit down. How much is 2 weeks' worth of care? $600?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff, $600. You have a counterclaim. Counterclaim is ridiculous. Money owed for lost wages, emotional distress on behalf of the children. You shouldn't have emotional distress on behalf of the children, madam. You're their mother. The first time you had an inkling that you felt that your young children were being neglected in the plaintiff's care, what you should have done was remove them. Remove them. First time you felt as if 3-year-old shouldn't have been subject of a slap by this young man? Great. Remove them. You found that the baby, the little one, was bitten by her little one. See, that's not watching them carefully enough, because they, I think, are supposed to be separated, correct?
Yes.
No, we were all in one room, so they weren't having to be separated, because with me only having less than 4 children, there was no way of separating because there was only one me.
It's a big responsibility to take care of little children.
Correct.
My daughter shouldn't have been in his reach. She did tell me that she left out of the room.
I agree with you.
She left out of the room is what she told me, Judge. So that's actually not true. She told me that she left out of the room and went to the kitchen.
What day? Give me the date that happened.
September 13th.
You left the children there until the end of October. It couldn't have been so disturbing for you, madam, to leave the children there until the end of October, another 6 weeks, if you felt as if they weren't getting adequate care. And if you did, that would be on you. And maybe a little bit on your father. Because if you told him about it, said, oh my God, that's terrible. Take my child out right away. All 3 of them. But you didn't. You left them in there September 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, all the way up until the end of September and the end of October. That's on you.
Actually, she did not have them in the end of September because she was suspended from her job. So they were gone for 2 weeks in September.
Were you suspended from your job?
I was. I had to...
That's my question. You were suspended from your job. When you were suspended from your job, did you take the children out of daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's reasonable. She didn't give you a problem with that, I assume.
No.
And you didn't pay for those 2 weeks?
I did not.
Great. Well, these 2 weeks you're going to pay for. Because
I don't believe I owe her anything.
I don't care what you believe. If you're not listening to what I'm saying to you and you're fixed in your opinion, that means you haven't learned anything. Your father tried to teach you a little bit of tough love? What I'm telling you is, if you work, you get paid. If you're not satisfied with the service, you stop using the service. If you continue to use the service despite the fact that you're not satisfied with it, you got to pay for it. That's America. You got paid, your father got paid, she gets paid. She didn't get paid for the 2 weeks you took your kids out. Didn't say to you, well, you have to pay me anyway. I have to keep this open for you. That was very fair. Took the kids out, didn't pay. You left your kids in, you pay $600. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
I am a little upset she didn't see things my way.
The judge was kind of in my favor for majority of it.
You know, her leaving my children in the care of her 15-year-old son and also her husband.
And why did she continue bringing her children to me for another month?
Also, my son letting me know that, you know, she hit him.
I have never touched her children. I could take a lie detector test to prove it.
It was pretty difficult for me because I didn't have any other choices. I didn't have anyone else who could help me with keeping all 3 of my children while I work.
She actually never gave me excuses. She actually just told me she was going to pay me.
Life is not easy.
If you work, you should get paid.
But you get back up and you keep moving.
My generation, I'm not sure about yours, I haven't had much experience in yours, but in mine, I think we confuse having to make a hard choice with being out of options. Here, I felt for the defendant. She had to make a hard choice. But even when her father came up and felt the need to burst out and say, my daughter had no options, she had no choice. Well, she did have a choice. It was a hard choice. You had to send your 2 older sons to live with their father and find a sort of mediocre, at best, childcare situation. But you made the choice to have those 3 children. And when you have children, you make a commitment to make the hard choices to benefit them.
In their best interest.
In their best interest. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you shouldn't become a parent.
In any event, I tried to make my steak analogy. It didn't.
I thought it was great.
Okay.
I had a great time.
Great. I'm glad you
I thought it was a
Suing her ex-boyfriend's brother, Cleefers McCowan Jr., for personal property and filing a false police report.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2143, Simpsons versus McCowan Jr.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Simpson, you lived with Mr. McGowan for, looks like 7 years is what you said.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It was off and on.
What do you mean off and on?
Well, I had another residence as well.
Okay.
And
it's going to get more complicated, I see, than less complicated. You lived off and on, according to you, with the defendant's brother, who is now deceased. Yes. It is your claim at one point in your papers that you and the defendant's brother were married.
Yes, ma'am.
He passed away.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant owes you money. He was the executor of the estate, and he owes you money for property that he took from the house and for filing a false police report against you, I assume indicating that you took things from the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. McGowan says that you and his brother were never married, while he indicates in his papers there might have been some sort of ceremony of marriage.
Yes.
That his brother somehow must have told him that he never filed the marriage license, so the marriage was never valid.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, let's go to that for a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, it's sort of curious and takes me back to law school days. And believe me, that really tests my memory. Were you at the ceremony where your brother married the plaintiff?
No, ma'am, I was not.
When did your brother tell you that there was a marriage ceremony?
I probably heard it just throughout life.
You mean throughout life for how long?
From the time that he had any dealings with her.
So about 7 years ago?
Yes, ma'am.
So you asked your brother whether he was married?
Yes.
How long ago was this?
I would say 4 years ago.
Okay, so 4 years ago, you say to your brother, I understand that you, what's your first name?
Mona.
Mona got married.
Well, so he gave me an insurance document, and I was like, wow, what's going on? What about all this?
He gave you an insurance document that said what?
From the VA indicating that I was going to be the person that gets the money upon if he demise.
If he died,
right? And
you had a VA insurance policy.
Yes, ma'am.
With you as the beneficiary.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so he showed you the insurance policy.
Well, he sent it to me in the mail.
Okay, and
email or electronic, and so I said, "Wow, what's going on?" So then I started to ask different questions, and he said, "Well, don't worry about that. We're not legally married."
No, you have to tell me. I said to him.
I said to him, so. Doesn't your wife
Isn't she the beneficiary?
I don't want to be involved in all this.
Right.
And he said, I am not married. We went through a ceremony, and you have 10 days to file the
marriage license.
The marriage license in Las Vegas.
Okay.
To solidify the marriage. And then he said, I never filed it. We are not married.
May I?
Just a second. Did your brother tell you that he had ever told Ms. Simpson that he never filed the marriage license?
No, we never had that conversation.
Okay, well, because you say in your answer, sir, that my brother was too smart for that, he never mailed in the license.
Well, he told me because there was a problem between these two. And so we talked about that, and he said, no, I'm not married to her. And he said, you have to file the document, and I never filed the document, and I have a copy of that right here.
Ms. Simpson,
yes, ma'am.
Tell me when this ceremony took place in Las Vegas.
April 2013.
Did you travel there with Mr. McGowan?
Yes, ma'am. We moved to Vegas together.
Who was at the ceremony?
It was no ceremony. What happened was I don't know what this is. What happened was we went to the Justice of the Peace, and the 10 days is not accurate.
No, don't. Don't
apologize.
Don't tell me.
We had 1 year to go to like a pastor or minister or something like that because we just went to the Justice of the Peace in Vegas. They give you a year to do it, whereas it's, I guess, what I think the term is officiant or something. Officiant has to do it so you can become married permanently.
So you knew that you were not legally married?
Well, it was legal, but it would be official if you don't do another step within a year. And
I understand that, but you never did the other step.
We didn't, only because he was sick, ma'am.
I don't care what the reason was. I don't care if he was watching Yellowstone or because it doesn't matter why.
I respect that.
What? You can get hooked on that.
No, yeah.
I understand.
So I don't care what the reason is. You knew that your marriage, because it wasn't confirmed, according to you,
Yes,
within a
ma'am.
year that you weren't legally married.
Yes, ma'am. And that
okay, just a second. That's all I want to know. That makes my life much easier. Because, Mr. McGowan, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Under what you told me, under the events that you told me, you see, you should have kept your mouth shut.
No, it's okay.
No.
It's going to be okay in the end. It's going to make a lot of sense in the end.
No, I understand that it's going to make a lot of sense to me. We're going to follow the money. But I just want to tell you and the people who are watching this that when I thought about your answer, that you said your brother was too smart and didn't file the necessary document within 10 days, my view of that scenario was that she could still consider herself his wife. Because if he fraudulently, in an attempt to deceive her, didn't mail the marriage license in, she would be the beneficiary. I'm just letting you know that. You understand what I just said?
Yes, ma'am.
Because he committed a fraud on her. He would have committed a fraud, your brother, on her into leading her to believe that they were a married couple and they had the responsibilities and the benefits of a married couple. But she says she volunteered that she knew they weren't married.
Yeah.
So I don't even have to address that.
And it's okay.
Just a second. I know where I'm coming from.
Okay.
So Mr. McGowan, the person that you were involved in for a period of years, on and off, you had your own place, but he was ill for a certain period of time. Was your brother ill?
No, ma'am.
No. Just a second. Key says no. You say he was ill for a great portion of that time. Shh. Just a second. For a great portion of that time. And that you were his caregiver.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were paid as his caregiver by the government.
The VA, yes, ma'am.
By the VA, to be his caregiver.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that would be inconsistent with being his wife, to be his caregiver. Because if you're a wife, you don't get benefits from the VA. If you are a non-relative and caring for somebody who requires assistance, you may get assistance. And how much was the VA? Just answer my question.
Yes,
this is not my first rodeo.
Okay, I understand.
How much was the VA paying you a month to take care of, what was your brother's first name?
Marcus.
How much were you being paid to take care of Marcus? Because you say that one check you didn't get because of him. It's part of your lawsuit, so you know exactly how much you were paid.
Ma'am.
How much?
$2,057.55.
A month.
Yes,
and when
ma'am.
did you start collecting that?
2014.
Woo! You are a legal stranger, so you must have filled out forms to say that you were married.
No, I was considered a family member. I was no longer considered the wife, but I was considered...
Well, you're not no longer. You were never his wife.
Ramona Simpson claims her ex-boyfriend's brother, Cleefers McGowan Jr., threw out her personal belongings. Cleefers is countersuing for damage and stolen property.
Okay, so there was a reason why you didn't continue to solemnize the marriage ceremony that you went through in 2013, because you started to collect $2,000 a month from the VA in 2014 that you couldn't have collected were you his wife. That's a yes.
No, it isn't, ma'am. Receiving the benefits from the VA, you have to be a family member. You have to be related to that person in order to get this stipend pay. It wasn't a regular VA payment, and it's for relatives. You have to be a relative for that veteran.
What are you getting?
Yes, it's true.
Check that,
Full
Sarah.
of stipend pay for the VA, because we're both disabled veterans. It's not like I just had to do this. I loved him, and I cared for him, and he was sick the day I met him.
Just a minute, you both disabled veterans?
Well, my disability was not as crucial as his.
How much do you collect?
I very minimum, because
I asked you a question. That's a very minimum.
Yes.
It's not a number.
Yes, it's $300 and some change. But the thing is, Your Honor, may I speak, please? He was sick from the day that I met him, and I was taking care of him prior for that. This was his idea, because he was familiar with the veterans and the system. This was his idea that we can receive funds, and it stayed right in the household. We were living together. It was stayed in the household, and that's okay with them.
I thought you told me a moment ago that you had your own place.
No, not then, ma'am. Not then, when we moved back from Vegas, because we stayed in Vegas for approximately 3 years. When we moved back from Vegas, he had purchased a home and everything, and it was supposed to be okay. We were going to be together. But he started living another alternate life, which he was very familiar with because he's introduced him to so many people. I don't even care about that. I still continue to take care of Marcus. It was no longer a romantic situation.
Now you still continue, you had your own place.
I lived both places because he needed me more there than he did when we was living together.
What kind of alternative lifestyle was he doing that he needed you there part-time?
He was seeing other people and
he was
stuff like
seeing
that.
women.
Pardon me?
He was seeing other women.
He was seeing other people, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he was seeing other people. But you, let me finish.
Yes, ma'am.
But you continued to receive the $2,057. You knew you weren't married. That money was coming directly to you. It wasn't coming to him.
Well,
it was coming to you. At what address?
He was giving me a portion from his bank account, and then when we discontinued everything, there was nothing physical. Then I was receiving my full allotment at that point, but I was still taking care of him, taking him to the VA, taking him to the hospital.
Wait just a second. I don't care. Don't go like this and like this. He's a legal stranger to you, and you're getting $2,000 a month to take him to the VA.
Ma'am, he was not a legal stranger.
He was a legal stranger to you. Legal. He was not your mother, father, brother, sister, or husband.
Ma'am, he was a dear friend of me. He continued to be a friend, honestly.
Well,
and he knows that. We went to several places together.
I'm setting up for myself what is the actuality of the situation. Now, I understand that I was really not prepared for this scenario. I was prepared for somebody, quite frankly, Miss Simpson, who had been defrauded by his deceased brother into believing they were married. She took care of him when he was sick. And all of a sudden, now that he's deceased, his brother comes in, kicks her out of the house, and takes all of his property. That's the scenario. But now I understand that that is not the case, that you knew you weren't married, that for 8 years you collected $2,000 a month for taking him to the doctor's offices, to the vet, to taking care of him in the house, but you understood that he was seeing other people, that you didn't have an exclusive relationship. Now I understand it. And you did receive a certain benefit from that because when you moved back from Vegas, you went to your own place because he was having an alternative life that had nothing to do with you. At that point, was the money going to his bank account or yours?
It was going to his bank account, ma'am.
Okay. Well, you say that he notified the government. Part of your lawsuit is for 1 month's check that you say, or 2 months that you didn't get. And you say you didn't get it because he notified the VA or somebody notified the VA. I don't care who notified the VA. What I want to know is, with those checks immediately preceding Mr. McGowan's death, going into his bank account or yours that he had?
His. It was going into Marcus's bank account.
Okay, and he was giving you money from that bank account?
Prior to his death, yes, ma'am.
Right up to the time he got sick and died?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
and how much would he give you?
He would have given me $2,057. $2,000.
All right.
No,
okay,
you mean total?
No,
I'm sorry.
No. I get it. It was not what I thought, but I get it.
Ma'am, may I please say
money owed
something?
for the return of property. What property?
The property, which is my funds. I have jewelry that was missing and clothing that I never received because he kicked out his niece and boarded up the house.
Just a second. Was your brother taken to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
On what date?
28th of August, 2021.
Okay.
He was nowhere to be found.
Just what?
He wasn't around.
Just a second.
I did that.
Just a second. Did you take him to the hospital?
I had his daughter to call an ambulance. I got to Marcus's house, and I followed him to the hospital. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, well, you want to just answer my question? I actually understand the whole scenario. You understand that I do understand the money part. I get it. So when you say his daughter called the ambulance and you got over there from your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And who do you live with there?
My daughter and my son.
And in whose name is the lease?
My daughters, my son, and myself.
So all three are on the lease?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you had a lease at that address?
2017.
Okay. So we're talking about 5 years that you've had an alternative address. You have an answer for me?
There is a Veterans Affairs program of comprehensive assistance for family caregivers. It says $2,800 a month, but based on a fee schedule that can change. So the 2057 fits within the range.
And does it define family members?
It doesn't define the family caregiver, only that the VA may appoint someone who's part of the primary family caregivers to the veteran, but it doesn't identify who qualifies as a family caregiver.
As a family caregiver. And that's the act that you were under. But you were not a member of his family.
Yes, ma'am.
You were not a member of his family.
Well, it
not
goes
a well.
further than that.
Not a well. This is not a well. You're living with your daughter, your son, on a lease since 2017. You know he's got an alternative lifestyle that has absolutely nothing to do with you. He was giving you the $2,000 a month. I don't know why. I don't even have to get into that.
But you were not that individual.
But you were not a family member. If this is for family,
it does go to the veteran to then give the family caregiver, though.
Okay, but you are a legal stranger to him. So you must have filled out forms to say that you were married.
No, it's up to that. It's up to that individual, the veteran, and I know how the procedure goes. It's up to that individual. I was considered a family member. I was no longer considered the wife, but I was considered.
Well, you're not no longer. You were never his wife. So if he filled out a form and
I'm okay with that, ma'am, because I could have.
Okay, so he had the right. You were never his wife. He had the right to board up the house, whichever it is, and you weren't living there for 5 years. You had a place. So if you had clothes there and your jewelry, what were your clothes and your jewelry there? If he was fooling around with other women, why would you leave your clothes and your jewelry in the house?
Okay, ma'am, the thing is, no one has came to the home as another woman in that home. I was always there. He has no proof or evidence that I was not there. So basically, I had their clothes there because I stayed there. I lived there.
Forget it. You were more than compensated with $2,000 a month. What's next? I don't believe that you leave any valuable jewelry at his house.
I was there most of the time, honestly.
You don't need valuable jewelry if you're taking care of a sick person.
Ramona Simpson is accusing defendant Cleefers McCowan Jr. of throwing out her personal belongings.
Okay. Do you have any of her property?
No, ma'am.
Did you dispose of any of her property?
I didn't. She had no property there.
Just a second. I don't believe she had any property there either. Anything of value.
And I did.
Okay.
Can I?
Excuse me.
I did find what the VA considers a caregiver. So if you're a spouse, son, daughter, parent, step-family member, or extended family member of a veteran, or if you live full-time with them, or if you're willing to live full-time with them if they designate you as the family caregiver.
So technically,
if you're willing to live with the veteran full-time, you could be qualified as a family caregiver, but it's up to the veteran to declare their own family
caregiver if you live there full-time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she stated if you were willing to, and I was always willing to.
Okay.
And because
good. I don't feel as if you were shortchanged, madam, at all. And I don't believe that you had anything of value in the house. So your case is dismissed. Now we're going to get to the second part of your claim. You say she took property from the house?
Yes, ma'am.
What property?
She took jewelry, guns.
What jewelry?
Chains, rings, cufflinks.
Show me.
Entire.
Show me. How am I going to figure that out? You have photographs of things?
Yes, I have some photographs here.
This is so sad.
It's so sad you have to put a period and end it. He had a good thing going for 9 years.
Ma'am, the money was paid in the arrears, first of all. So me not getting paid for, and this is really not a big issue to me, what he's saying, because they're all lies, and I'll tell you the truth.
Just say, I'm not saying anything, madam. All I'm saying is you have no case, because I don't believe that somebody who lived in a lifestyle, as you've described, as you've described to me, which is you have your own home, where you're on a lease since 2017, where you said to me he had an alternative lifestyle, but I still took him to his VA appointments. I took him, and I was his caregiver, but I lived with my daughter and my son. I don't believe that you leave any valuable jewelry at his house.
I was there most of the time, honestly.
You don't need valuable jewelry if you're taking care of a sick person.
But
Can I see?
I was taking was also friends, ma'am.
I've decided your case.
I respect that.
This is just what had happened to looking for everything that was taken in there.
I don't care. Who cares? What are you showing me? You're showing me that the place is a mess, that somebody went through it?
I'm showing you what...
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. Prior to his death, when had you seen your brother last?
I had seen him about 5 days prior to that.
You live close by?
I was living in San Diego at the time, and he lived in Highland, which is it's 79 miles up the 15 freeway.
Okay, so 5 days prior to the 5 days prior that you saw your brother, when had you seen him before?
We see each other quite frequently. We have family barbecues, this, that, and the other. I'm retired. I go.
Okay, would you return these to him? These don't show me any jewelry.
Okay.
It shows me that the house looked like it was picked through.
Okay. Thank you.
What else?
So quite frequently.
That's it. Did you get a VA benefit from your brother for his insurance?
From the life insurance policy.
Yeah, that's from the VA.
Yes, ma'am.
And how much did you receive?
$2,600.
Who paid for his funeral?
I did.
How much was that?
$1,100 or $1,200.
So you took some of the insurance money and paid for it?
Yes.
Did he have any other valuable asset?
He had quite a bit of stuff. It's in probate as we speak.
Oh, so case is in probate
It's
now.
in probate right now as we speak.
Oh, great. So I don't have to deal with it. Your case is dismissed. We're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
You know what? I have a lot of respect for the judge, but she didn't listen to me.
Well, I'm happy that the judge made the decision that she made.
He's a habitual liar.
Thief. My brother died, and within a half a day went over and burglarized the house.
This is something that he can laugh about, and he's going to go and tell the whole world that I'm still a liar. I'm still a this, that, and the other.
There is quite a bit of items that belong to me that this person stole.
That you can love someone and not be married to them. You can help someone and not be married to them and making love to them. I was genuinely there to help Marcus because I love Marcus.
The devil. I don't want the devil, the devil.
He barred me from the funeral. I didn't fight it because the respect I have for his family and for Marcus. I could have went there. No. I said, you know what? I won't be there.
I hope that she crawls back in the rat hole she came out of and does whatever she does.
You know what was interesting in that case, Sarah? When I read the complaint and the answer, I had a whole different vision.
Me too.
Of what the arrangement was. And based upon what the defendant wrote in his answer, that his brother, with regard to the marriage, to his brother telling him, I'm too smart, I didn't mail in the papers.
Read like fraud a little bit.
Right.
But she was in on it. She knew. She didn't complete the steps.
She didn't complete the step for a different reason, but she knew
that they weren't legally married.
That they weren't legally married.
Which changes the whole game from a legal perspective.
Right. Certainly the fact that the case is currently in probate made my life a lot easier. Anyway, it should be a warning signal when you get married out there, folks, and you have a marriage license, because I performed enough weddings to know you have to seal it, sign it, put a stamp on it, and usually put it in the mail within 3 days of the ceremony. So brides and grooms, make sure you put it in the mail together. Or